People that really know me from early on in my life, my early teen years, they would all tell you they would have thought that I would have went the other way, meaning that I wouldn't have been a member of the law enforcement and part of the good guy crews. There's a knock on the door, but like when he's like loud, like aggressive knocks on the door. So like it was weird. It wasn't too late, but it was late enough to where like my mom and I were both like we were puzzled that someone was knocking on my door at that time. So I go to the door and the door busts open, knocks me over, and it's the DEA. My dad's drug proceed put me through college and law school. People like, they get starstruck by actors, actresses, musicians, and I'm over here like, yo, my dad knows John Gotti.
Welcome to the Purpose Over Pension podcast. Today I have with me Eli Slavkin. He is a detective or retired detective from the New York City Police Department. Ellie, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, man. Long overdue.
Yeah.
Way overdue. This for a while now.
We have. Even when I had the Finance United podcast, I wanted you to come on.
Right.
And I knew that you had a pretty profound story, very interesting one at that. And I was like, we got to chat.
Yes.
We got to talk, man. So
I'm glad we're finally here.
Yeah, man. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what's your background? Where'd you grow up?
All right. So I'm first generation born in the United States. My family immigrated from the former Soviet Union back in 1975. And when they got here, they lived in Brooklyn, out in Coney Island. So 2 years thereafter, I was born in 1977. We lived down the island. My parents only spoke Russian, so my first language was Russian. Spoke no English in the household whatsoever.
Wow.
And after living my first 2 or 3 years on Coney Island, we moved down to Staten Island and we bought like a little house out there. We were out there for 7 years. But I spent a lot of time on Coney Island because my late grandparents lived there. My mom actually still has my late grandparents' co-op on Coney Island, which is like right across the street from the 60th precinct, right across the street from like the amusement park, the boardwalk, the beach, right on West 8th Street.
Those high rises?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember during Hurricane Sandy, I was stationed at the 6-0.
Okay.
So I had to
so that build, the one that's directly across the street, so that's my old, I grew up in, we still have the apartment,
That's
13th
crazy.
floor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I spent all my weekends there with my late grandparents. Loved it. Like I said, we lived on Staten Island for about 7 or 8 years, and from there we moved to Manhattan. So I moved to Manhattan when I was 10 years old. Went to 6th grade. After 6th grade, I went to junior high school in Chelsea. After that, I went to LaSalle Academy in the Lower East Side, where I played basketball 4 years. I mainly went there to play basketball.
Okay.
But I have a very, very dear connection to Brooklyn because of the time I spent there, especially my late grandparents. So when people ask me where I'm from, I say Manhattan and Brooklyn.
All right.
Staten Island's like completely out the equation. Like,
Gotcha.
even though I lived there, it was kind of like a
A
blur.
blip on the radar.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Love the city. I'm a Manhattanite to the core, and I'm sure you haven't been, worked in the city. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Went to LaSalle 4 years. Loved it, all boys school, which I didn't like that aspect of it. But I got to meet some wonderful people, wonderful teachers, some people I still keep in contact with. And after that, I went on and did my undergrad at St. John's, commuted from the city to St. John's. Loved it there.
Yeah.
The basketball program is rebuilding. I'm a huge basketball fan, especially a college basketball fan.
Yeah.
So a lot of that really had a positive impact on my, experience being a student there.
Yeah. And I don't want to skip over you playing basketball in probably one of the greatest eras of New York City basketball, right?
Yes.
So you graduated from LaSalle what year?
So I graduated in 95. So the name that's going to ring a bell will be God Shamgod, who I had the chance of, the wonderful experience of sharing the court with when I was a freshman at LaSalle Academy.
You played with him?
Yeah, I played with him. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Well, I came off the bench.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying like you saw this dude every day in practice.
Oh, yeah. Great, amazing dude.
Wow.
We still keep in contact sporadically here and there. I mean, he's a busy guy.
He's a coach for an NBA team now, right?
He's
like
an
not a head coach.
Right. He's an assistant coach for the Orlando Magic. He spent years, I think close to almost 10 years as a trainer for the Dallas Mavericks. And now he's eventually grown within the game. Obviously, he has a tremendous amount of knowledge based on his own experience of playing and being a trainer at that level. And now, he moved up. So now he's an assistant coach with the Orlando Magic.
What
Good
was,
dude.
what was some big names that you used to play up against?
Oh man. So a lot of the big names I played against was at camp. So I went to 5-star a few years. But I really didn't fully develop until I got older.
Okay.
So like I didn't mature within the game until I was older.
Okay.
So I didn't have an opportunity to be on the court with a lot of the big names, the Felipe Lopez's, the Stephon Marbury. These were guys that you would like play pickup ball with, at 5-star before the camp actually fully started, like when we would just get there.
Gotcha.
But my skill set unfortunately didn't really improve until I was a senior. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I was a little behind. I did play all 4 years. I started junior and senior year. We had a varsity B team because the talent was so just off the chain at that time.
Yeah.
Ron Artest, another guy. He was 2 years behind me. They call him, he goes by Metal World Peace.
Yeah.
Always just be Ron to people that know him.
Where did he go? Holy
LaSalle.
Oh, he went. Wait.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah, 4 years at LaSalle Academy. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So
big name,
yeah, good dude. People think he's like a nut job, but he's a great guy. A little bit of a hothead. I am too, though, so I can't really, blame anyone for being that way. But good dude.
I mean, you grew up in Manhattan.
Yes.
A little bit of Coney Island.
Yes.
So you got to hold your own in those 2 places. Where in Manhattan did you grow up?
I've lived everywhere. I've lived in Midtown. I lived on the Upper East Side. I've lived in Spanish Harlem. I lived in the 2-3. So I lived on 109 in Madison.
Okay.
I lived there. I lived some of the time which I spent living there was when I was a rookie cop, which made things awkward because, of that element, which I'm sure you remember what that was like.
For sure.
Drugs that were being, pitched all around that area, the violence, the shots fired. So it was interesting.
So you were from Manhattan for real. Like you were really.
I didn't grow up around like the super rough parts of Manhattan, so I'm not going to claim that I did.
Yeah.
What made me dynamic as a person in terms of my upbringing was the fact that a lot of my close friends, my teammates from high school, lived in inner parts of the city, like the ghetto.
Right.
And so when they would embrace me and show me love and treat me like family, I would go and spend time with them. So I've been all around. I mean, some of the worst parts, Queensbridge projects, guys that I played ball with, LaSalle, Jefferson houses, Wagner houses, and back then, I mean, I don't know if you remember what it was like back then, but it was a different type of element than it is now.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
But being Caucasian and going to those places, even though it's with people that lived in those respective communities, I mean, it was fucking intimidating, dude.
Yeah, I was going to ask
because, like, it's cool. Like, you're my boy, you're my brother. You show me love. We trust one another. And I trust you, obviously, because here I am in your neighborhood. That's a dangerous one. And it's something that is not a part of my daily repertoire. So it was interesting. But after, visiting my friends in those types of communities throughout my years of growing up, I was comfortable with it.
And I'm pretty sure that when you became a police officer, you were able to use your exposure to these different areas and different neighborhoods.
I tell people that the most surreal thing about being a cop for me, especially early on in my career, was the uniform. I was never fazed by the communities. I was never fazed by the bad guys that lived in those respective communities. For me, my greatest adjustment was looking at myself in the mirror and seeing that uniform on.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was your home dynamic like?
So people that really know me, from early on in my life, my early teen years, they would all tell you they would have thought that I would have went the other way, meaning that I wouldn't have been a member of the law enforcement and part of the good guy crew, so to speak.
Really?
So the criminal element was very prevalent in my household from early on.
Criminal element?
Yes. So my parents, given the fact they were immigrants, they really weren't able to like monitor, for example, what it was I was watching on television, the way parents monitor their kids nowadays, or having the type of technology that we have now where you can like make settings on your television, thus preventing your children from watching certain programs. So my parents, because they didn't speak English well, or there was times where they barely spoke any English, period, I was able to watch whatever cable TV shows I wanted, HBO, Cinemax. Free reign. Like one of the ratings is R restricted. Like my shit was like no restrictions.
So you're growing up in an era where, you remember that movie Kids?
Of course, I'm talking about before kids.
This is before kids.
Yeah, I'm 48. I don't know. How old are you?
42.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got a little bit of time on you. Kids was more when I was, I forgot what year that came out. I want to say that I was in high school when Kids came out.
Okay.
But going back to what my family life was like, it's funny how we have flashbacks as we get older, right? So my pops always had money. Like money wasn't an issue. I remember, and my mom and I were just talking about this yesterday. So like for my 9th birthday, for example, my pops was never around. He was out there working, hustling, doing his thing. He left like $500 for me as a 9-year-old to go and buy like the new Sega console, buy games for it. And $500 back in like the 80s was a lot of money.
Yes, it was.
Right? A lot of, it's still money today,
Yeah.
but the value was that much greater
Sure.
in that era versus now. But shit that I would see like scales in my house, packagings for, you
Like
know,
triple beam type scales? Or?
like big ass scales, like old school scales that people would weigh narcotics on. Narcotics packagings. My dad had a shotgun in the house. And the reason I knew what these things were was because, again, remember what I said just a moment ago, there was no restriction on what I was watching on television. So I would kind of like put 2 and 2 together. I'm like, oh, wait, this is the same thing I saw on this movie that I watched last week, right? So, you know, a lot like how the kids nowadays are growing up, you know, through social media, which I'm sure we'll eventually get to that in our conversation. For me, like a lot of what I learned, you know, my early education was television programming, cable television. So fast forward now, I am 10 years old and it's the winter of 88. My mom and I were in the house. This is on Staten Island. We're watching the Winter Olympics together.
Yeah.
And there's a knock on the door, but like when he's like loud, like aggressive knocks on the door. So like it was weird. It wasn't too late, but it was late enough to where like my mom and I are both like a little puzzled that someone's knocking on our door at that time. So I go to the door and the door busts open, knocks me over, and it's the DEA. And they're doing a search warrant in my house because I had just locked on there's a knock on the door, but like when he's like loud, like aggressive knocks on the door. So like it was weird. It wasn't too late, but it was late enough to where like my mom and I are both like a little puzzled that someone's knocking on our door at that time. So I go to the door and the door busts open, knocks me over, and it's the DEA. It was probably like 7 or 8 people in my house. It was just my mom and I that were there. There was no one else there. I think our dog was there at the time. We had a small puppy. But other than us, there was no one else in the house. But they were treating us like there was like actual like, you know, weapons in the house, you know, things that I wasn't able to appreciate then, but I obviously appreciate now because of the career and time I spent in law enforcement. So I'm in my room, the door's closed. I hear this commotion, ask my mom a question. Remember, my mom didn't speak English that well. This is only about, I would say 12, 13 years into her, you know, citizenship, her time here in the United States. So she had a heavy accent, still has an accent, but speaks English a lot better, obviously, now that she did then.
Sure.
And I'm like, what the fuck, man? I'm sitting there and I'm like pacing in my room and I'm trying to like, you know, keep myself distracted, but there's a lot happening. And, you know, so like I said, my father obviously got arrested and they were there looking for evidence. And they asked my mom, one of the questions I remember asking was like, do you have any weapons in the house? My mom was like, no, there's no weapons in the house. And I'm like, sitting in my room, I'm like, dude, there's a shotgun in the closet. When you first go into the room, the first closet door on the right, there's a shotgun leaning up against the wall, you know?
But you didn't say anything.
No, in my head, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, again, remember, like, I'm like thinking, like, what is I learned watching all of these, you know, crime stories and programs on TV, right? Not so much keep my mouth shut, just like, I'm just like, oh no, like I know what they're looking for, right?
Got you.
So I remember one of the agents, you know, came out minutes later and he's kind of like, you know, like not yelling at my mom, but he's like, oh, there's no weapons in the house, right? Like, what the fuck is this? And he like racks his slide of the shotgun. And, you know, so this is just like little things I remember here and there. So my parents didn't want to be truthful with me as far as telling me what happened, like what led to these agents coming to my house. So I guess they didn't know that I was as intelligent I was at that young age. So they tried to feed me some bullshit, telling me that my dad was involved with a crew that stole pieces of art from a museum. So I'm like,
What?
I'm like, what?
I mean, and even then, that's still a criminal element.
100%, 100%. But I'm like, yeah, like what? And I didn't know exactly what the DEA was though.
Okay.
Right. You know what I'm saying? So I knew they were like law enforcement, but I didn't know what DEA stood for. I didn't know they were like exclusive, like, agents that deal with like narcotics, related investigations, right?
Sure.
Exclusively, correct. So I'm like, yeah, all right. So like I'm buying their bullshit for a while. So right next to my bedroom, we had like a guest room where like, like we had guests, like meeting family. They would spend the night in that room. My aunt, my uncle, my grandparents, whomever. And in that room, I also kept another one on my game consoles, my ColecoVision. It's fucking so long ago.
Wow.
Was in that room. And so I would play in there. I would bounce back. I had a TV in my room where the Sega was, and I would bounce to the other room and I played ColecoVision. And in that room, there was like a cabinet. And so one day I was like, you know what? Like no one was home. And I start like just going through this cabinet, through these drawers. And I found like a stack of like documents. And I start reading these documents. And it was my dad's like court case.
Wow.
So I'm reading through it, and it said conspiracy to distribute narcotics, heroin. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, they fucking lied to me. And I'm only like 10 years old at this time. Like they lied. Like I knew it. I knew there was no damn paintings involved in all of what happened, So it was it's conspiracy to distribute a large quantity of heroin. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, but the drug laws were very, very strict in comparison. Correct. In comparison. But it was a Fed case, which was different. But the feds had their own guidelines that kind of somewhat mirrored the state guidelines.
Okay.
So I was like, damn, and you know what, Len, I'll be honest, dude, I don't remember like what the conversation was like that I had with my parents, but I do recall calling them out on it, right? And saying like, why did y'all lie to me for? You know what I mean? Like, why did you tell me this nonsense about him, stealing paintings with a crew of guys and trying to resell it on the black market and all of that. So
they came looking for your dad.
My dad was already in custody.
Oh, he was already in custody.
My dad and his co-defendants had already been arrested. They had already been arrested.
Okay, so the takedown where they came in.
So they already had like, now I'm going to speak to you like a former member of law enforcement as an attorney as well. So they already had like, it was a case takedown. So they arrested my dad and his co-defendants in the field. I don't know what it was they were doing. And they had a search warrant in hand already to subsequently execute a search warrant at my residence as well as the residences of his co-defendants at that time.
Got you. Now
so
you speak my language.
Right. right. So
when did you have this opportunity to question your dad? You said your parents, when you pressed them about it.
So like when I read over the court documents, when I read over the entire case, I mean, I was sitting there and like, I was like shocked. I was in disbelief because I felt like I was living one of the movies I was recently watching on a cable channel. Right? I don't remember what movie it was, but it could have been any movie that had, a drug element to it, right?
Of course.
And when I confronted them about it, their reasoning was they just didn't want me to know that he had done what he did. That explaining to me that it was something involving the theft of paintings was not as intense as him being involved in drugs.
Wait, so here's my thing. You said at 10 years old, that's when they broke down the door, right?
Correct.
And then that's when you also saw the documents.
No, I saw the documents months later.
Months later. So your dad was in custody at that time though, right?
He was in custody. He made bail. He made bail.
Okay.
And after he made bail,
that's when you asked
that's when I confronted the both of them.
Because that's what I was wondering.
No, he was in custody for a while, but he made bail relatively quick. The guidelines for posting bail, were not what they are now. So now you have to actually show proof that the money comes from a legitimate source. So, well, no, I'm sorry. That was more on the state level. I apologize. No, the feds, I'm sorry. My uncle put up his house as collateral for my dad's bail.
What was your relationship like with your dad when you did see him?
I rarely saw him, man. It was just my mom and I. I mean, he was always out, man, always hustling. Listen, my dad, who I have a great relationship now, he'll be turning 80 years old, knock on wood, in January. he came to this country. People tell stories about, listen, I came to this country with $200, $100. Like my dad legit came. So my parents met in Italy. So they were both immigrating from the former Soviet Union to the United States.
Okay.
And a lot of the reasons why people from the former Soviet Union were immigrating then was because I'm Jewish. Jews were being persecuted against in the former Soviet Union. Before they actually made it to the United States, a lot of the immigrants that were trying to immigrate to the United States were stopping in Italy. So my parents actually met in Italy as like the stop point, the in-between point between Russia and the United States.
Wow. Okay. So with your dad being a drug dealer, I hate
I'm
to
sorry.
say
Yeah,
it.
I'm sorry. No, it's fine. No, it's cool.
I
No,
hate
it's cool.
to say it like
It's
that.
cool.
But was your life different from the rest of the people that you associated with? Did you have a little bit more than everybody else? Like you said, you had the Calico Visions, you had the Genesis.
Right.
What about your clothes and apparel and things like that?
Man.
Or even your apartment, per se?
It was a big secret, man. Like, you understand, like, this is where, I learned how to keep a secret. I learned how to shut my motherfucking mouth. And I carried that frame of mind, that frame of thinking all through our life up until this day. So we weren't flashy. At that time, the house we were living in Staten Island was a small house. He didn't drive a fancy car or anything like that. We had, but we didn't show that we had. As far as dressing, my mother's Eastern European, so my mother would dress me awful. My hair was awful. My clothes, by European standards, were very nice. By American standards, I was made fun of.
What did I look like?
Like a clown. Well, actually, I mean, I don't even know what to describe it. You know what? I looked like someone from like the art community, like a trendy dresser from the art community. Like,
well, like a hipster slash...
Okay, yeah, like a hipster. Envision someone that like is going to like an art gallery,
like the Met Gala or something.
Right. Like, I mean, I looked awkward. I mean, I'll share a picture with you at some point in time once we're done with the podcast.
Yeah,
I'll look for a picture.
I'll throw that in.
Right.
I'll throw that in.
Feel free to do so.
You'll be the first one where I throw in some B-roll of a picture. Or something.
Right.
I like that.
Right. So feel free to throw it in. But here's the thing though, man. Everything that we were able to have, it seemed like it was a lot, but it wasn't enough. And I think that my mom and I came to that realization after he left to go to prison. So that was a very difficult adjustment, right? When you have and now you don't have, right?
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things that I learned, and I became very fascinated with the life of crime from a very young age. So when my dad was at MCC, he was waiting to go out to the correctional facility in Pennsylvania he eventually got shipped out to. While he was in MCC, my mom and I were now living on the Upper East Side. We were renting an apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. At that time, I was in the 6th grade, 6th or 7th grade. And I remember going to visit my dad with my mom. So we walk into the visiting room and he hadn't come out yet. But I'm looking over and John Gotti is sitting right there with one of his family members. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm telling my mom in Russian, I'm like, yo, look, that's John Gotti. So she's like, where? So like, she looks and sure enough, we see him. And like, I'm like fucking starstruck that, like I'm in the presence of John Gotti. Right. And my dad comes out. And as my dad is coming out, him and John kind of do one of these, like, like they acknowledge one another. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like,
so he gave him the head nod.
He gave him a head nod, like, yo, what's up? Like, like one of these. And he's sitting there with, I don't know if it was his wife or who, I don't recall. I couldn't tell you who the family member, he was there with a member or maybe 2 members of his family. I don't remember. And they gave one. I was like, oh, and so my dad comes to sit down and me, the first thing I do, I'm questioning like, yo, like, I'm talking to him in Russian. So no one obviously understands what we're saying because we would pretty much only talk Russian anyway. And I'm like, John? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how do you know? He goes, how do you know him? He goes, we play cards like almost every day together. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Playing cards every day with John Gotti. You know what? Now, a lot of thinking about Lenny, I think I was in the 7th grade. I feel like I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
So I'm like 12. And he's like, yeah, we play cards. And he's like, he's a great guy. I'm like, and I'm like still like in utter disbelief that he's playing cards with like the fucking head of the Gambino crime family.
That's nuts.
The Teflon Don and my dad are cool.
Wow.
Yeah, man. So that was like, it's just funny. People like, they get starstruck by actors, actresses, musicians. And I'm over here like, yo, my dad knows John Gotti.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Was your dad part of any crew or like well-known organization as far as you know?
So my dad worked closely with the Italian underworld. My dad had, this is before he obviously, had gotten arrested, before he caught the Fed case that he did. He spent a lot of time on Brighton Beach, Coney Island, those areas. And so he had close, I guess my dad was like considered like an associate.
Okay.
Like from the ranking hierarchy in any organized crime family. So he had businesses, he had an underground gambling spot with, members of the Italian underworld. And so he had great relationships with those people. He reconnected with a lot of them when he eventually went to prison, because, it'd been years since he had the gambling spot and had those relationships. So I think it made his prison term a little bit easier because he knew people.
Right. I thought you were going to say something like maybe part of the Russian mob.
No, actually he had nothing to do with them. Yeah, at all. Yeah, nothing to do with them. The guys that he had caught the case with, they were Russian.
Okay.
But as far as like the businesses that he was involved in, he dealt primarily with Italians.
Now you said you were heavy into movies, and what was your favorite movie back then? Let's forward to your favorite gangster or like crime movie.
So
that
the movie that's
played, yeah.
The movie that stands out is not even a mob movie. For a lot of people like from our era, our generation, they would say Scarface. So the movie that stood out for me as a kid, I remember watching and being like completely fascinated by, was Bad Boys with Sean Penn.
I never saw that movie.
And Issa Morales.
I never saw that
You've never seen that movie?
No.
It's a great movie. So basically, Sean Penn is this like, bad kid growing up like inner city Chicago, catches a case and he winds up in juvie. And, it just follows his time while he's in juvie and, all of the encounters and, what his day-to-day life was like, being locked up in like a hardcore juvenile facility and him having to fight his way through the end of his sentence.
Wow. Okay. I thought you were gonna say something like New Jack City, but you were a little older.
No, I'm a little older. So yeah, I'm talking like 80s, man. Like, mid to late 80s. Bad Boys was even older than when I watched it. That movie might be like back in like 82.
Okay.
And I'm the guy that always says they don't make movies now the way that they used to.
82. So you were born in 77, 82, you're 5 years old. And you're
the movie. I was older when I was watching it. I wasn't 5.
Okay.
I'm probably like 8, 9 years old watching this movie. Not that, it's acceptable for a child that age to be watching, a movie of that type of genre.
Right.
But that movie stands out. I love that movie. I can watch it like once a month and enjoy every minute of it.
That's awesome. All right. So your dad, he goes to prison. How many years did he have to do?
He did close to 5 years.
Okay.
So that was a very hard time for my mom and I. Very, very difficult time.
And you're in the age bracket of?
So I'm in that age bracket of like when a young man needs that male presence, that father figure in his life.
So we're talking 7th grade through?
We're talking like my dad left. I was in the 6th grade and he didn't come back until I was a junior in high school. Maybe end of sophomore year. So he had left me during those years. And at that time, my mom, she's an esthetician. I'm not sure if you know what that is. Like, she does like facials. Yep. She'd worked for Estee Lauder for years.
Okay.
At that time, she was working at the Estee Lauder counter at Macy's. And it was tough, man. Because the apartment, the rent cost money. My late grandparents helped us out tremendously. We were on public assistance. I remember, oh my God, Lenny, I'll never forget the day when she and I first went to the supermarket and we had food stamps to pay with. And I was so fucking embarrassed, dude. Like
And
it
back then,
was.
they were actually like certificates.
Oh yeah. They look like Monopoly money almost, right?
Wow.
Right. So it was crazy. I'll never forget that first day. We were at the Food Emporium on 45th Street, and we walked in there, and she had the food stamps, and I was like, ugh, and I was embarrassed. Like I wanted to fucking walk away, but I didn't. I stood there, like, you know, being as prideful as I possibly could be at that stage of my life, just being there for my mom, because it certainly wasn't easy for her either, you know, because money was never an issue. And it suddenly became an issue. Suddenly it wasn't like, you know, I can get a $500 cash gift from my dad on my birthday. It was like, you know, we went school clothes shopping once a year, and that was it, you know, before school started. And that was my gear for the year. And that would happen once a year.
What did that do for you as an adolescent?
I was angry. I was angry at my dad. And there was a park on 36th Street and 2nd Avenue where I grew up. And that's really where like I learned how to really play the game, hone my skills, so to speak, play with the older guys. And I was like desperate for like a father figure, bro.
Wow.
Like I have an older half brother. We can circle back to him. His story is actually interesting as well, because he's much like my father. So
is this your father's son?
My father's son from previous marriage.
Gotcha.
Before he had met my mom.
Okay. And it's just you, your mom, and your dad. You had no siblings?
Nope.
Okay.
I am my parents' only biological child.
Gotcha.
So I lost my train of thought. Where were we at?
No, you were talking about how you played.
So the courts where I played at every day, you know, I made some of my best friends there whom I still keep in contact with till this day. But a lot of the older dudes, this is like let me get the date, man, because you mentioned New Jack City. This is about like 1989, 1990, around that time. And the guys that I was meeting, these were guys that just came home from doing bids. And so one of the guys that I started looking up to, his name is Ray. He was a Bronx dude, but at that time he was living in a 2-3. His mom had a place on 106 between 2nd and 3rd Avenue.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 1st and 2nd Avenue. I apologize.
1st and 2nd.
Right. Those little walk-up buildings, like in the middle of the street. On
like the brownstone. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So started looking up to this dude. He came home on a manslaughter charge. He did 8 years, like, you know, like hard time.
Wow.
I guess he was running with a crew when he was young. They did a stick up and somebody pulled a trigger and the victim wound up, you know, dying. And you know, I was very open with him. He was a heavy weed smoker. We played spades like every day in between like playing basketball. And I remember one day he said, "Yo, Ellie," he goes, "you know, you're real lucky." And I'm like, at this time I might be like 13 years old or so. And I was like, "Why do you say that?" He goes, "Because your brother and your father took the trip for you." And those words, it gives me chills right now just sharing this with you. Like, it stuck with me till this day. Because when I really, really think back, man, like, he was absolutely right. Like, my father took that trip for me, because I think there's a really, really strong possibility that had I not been exposed to that early on in life the way that I was, I could have made some poor decisions myself where I could have wound up either, you know, incarcerated or possibly dead.
That's amazing. I've never heard it put into words like that. Did you find yourself staying out of trouble using basketball as an avenue?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I woke up and went to sleep with basketball. I love that game. You know, I think for me, getting older now, it's not so much the fact that we're getting older, because I'm learning how to slowly but surely embrace the wisdom and knowledge that goes along with us getting older. What's hard for me is knowing that I can't play the game anymore. It's been like that for quite some time, because my mind wants to do things that my body can no longer do.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I had that moment. I had like that moment where there were guys that I was working with. A lot of my friends from the job, from the NYPD undercovers. So, you know, dudes that came from similar walks of life like I did. And we played in some pretty competitive like basketball leagues. And I remember one night we were playing against a group of like young cats and they were talking shit. And I was like, they're getting mouthy and I'm getting mouthy right back. Like, and I remember telling one of the kids, like, yo, you ain't shit. Like, you know, when I was your age, I would have fucking crushed you. But that same game, I remember having a moment where my mind's like, yo, El, we're going to do this. And my body was like,
no, sir.
No, sir, not happening.
You will not be doing that.
And at that point, I realized that the game, you know, had passed me.
You had to let
and
it
it
go.
broke my heart.
About coaching or something, you know, it's still, it's not the same, right?
I have 2 daughters. Neither one of them were interested in playing basketball. They both played softball. So
got you. Okay. All right. You go through high school. Now LaSalle, was a private school, you said? It was a private
school, Second Avenue and 2nd Street.
All right. It
was a private school.
So something like that, your pops is locked up. How were you able to?
My grandparents.
Wow.
My grandparents made it. I don't even know how they made it happen, man, but they made it happen. Like, you know, I guess when you come from the former Soviet Union, having to, you know, worry about, you know, being able to buy bread and potatoes and provide for your family, like you learn how to survive. So if they learned how to survive in the former Soviet Union the way that they did, you know, surviving in America was a joke to them. So they just figured it out. And my grandparents always helped out. So they helped out with the tuition. They're always there for us. There's not a day that goes by I don't think about my grandparents.
Same thing for college?
Oh no, man. Shit. I had mentioned my brother, so let me just touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
So my half brother, when my parents met, my dad never disclosed the fact he had another child. So my mom only learned of this shortly after I had been born.
I hear a lot about these stories, bro.
Really bizarre, man. And I am my mother's son. My mom and I have very, very like similar personalities where like, you know, we just don't take any shit. You know, we put ourselves above everyone else except our kids. So my dad essentially wanted, when he, you know, informed my mom about this other son he had from a previous marriage. According to him at that time, his former spouse had died. And he brought my brother to the United States along with my father's late parents. I don't call them my grandparents. I was never close to my father's side of the family. So it's hard for me to give them that label that has such value and meaning attached to it. That's what I mean. I'm my mother's son. So I just like keep it a buck. And I'm going to say, listen, my father's parents, my father's sister, like, because I never had like a real foundation with them.
Got you. Okay.
So my dad was expecting my mother, who at that time, she was like, maybe like 24 years old. Like once he had, you know, informed me he had this other son, that she was going to help raise his other son. My mom was like, oh no. She goes, I'm not raising him. He's not my child. You know, I guess because he failed to disclose that from the outset, you know, she felt betrayed in a way. And I understand that.
Yeah. She probably wouldn't have had you if.
Well, maybe, or maybe like, maybe she wouldn't have been with my dad either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. So she was like ridiculed by my dad's family, how, you know, how she was wrong for not, you know, accepting his son and wanting to raise his son. So my brother wound up being raised and living with my father's late parents, his grandparents. And he was living with them out in East New York, Brooklyn, in Starrett City, which is now, I believe it's called Spring Creek. So if you can imagine, it's like the Bronx's version of like Co-op City.
Yep. I know.
In East New York, Brooklyn, between Flatlands Avenue and the Bell Parkway.
Right off the Bell Parkway.
Right. So at that time, like it appeared to be a beautiful community, right? Very, very diverse, heavily populated by Russian immigrants.
Okay.
Which is why my father's late parents wound up, you know, residing there. I would go visit my brother. My brother.
What was the age gap?
7 years.
7 years.
My brother was a hustler. My brother is my father's son. Like, you know, I have 90, like I would say 75% of my DNA is my mom's, 25% of my father. Like my brother is 100% his father. So when I would go visit him, my brother's name is Alex. Alex had no Caucasian friends at all. Zero. Interesting because
100% Russian.
100%. They like 100. They called him Russia. That was his nickname on the street and everything.
Wow.
And when I would go visit him on the weekends, like he would buy me toys, like like he had his own money, right? And like I said, like again, me just like correlating like entertainment that I was watching on television and reality, like it was real. So I was able to wrap my head around like what it was my brother was doing based upon the element he was in.
Right. And there's no supervision there.
Oh no. My father's parents, they're old. They're old. I mean, he could tell him whatever he wanted to tell him, as long as he did so in a respectful manner. Was home to have dinner with them, like that sufficed. I mean, he would lie every day. My brother was a drug dealer from a very young age. From like 13 years old, my brother was selling cocaine.
In East New York.
In that community. I mean, he's running around like, I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, so years had passed and my brother catches a case, and the details of his case are very simple. There was someone that owed him and his co-defendant, right, a large sum of cash, and he wasn't paying them back in a timely manner. So what they did, they kidnapped this dude. They tied him up, they beat him, they threw him in a closet in my brother's co-defendant's apartment when no one was home. And they threatened his life. So some time goes by. He pays them the money back, but he makes an introduction of another group of individuals who wound up being undercover narcotics detectives from Brooklyn North Narcotics. And my brother and his Cody wound up selling a substantial amount of cocaine to two of these undercovers. And he did so at 16 years old. If you remember back then, 16 years old, the laws are not what they are now. You are charged as a full adult.
That's right.
In that time period when you commit a crime of that nature.
Right.
So he winds up fleeing the United States because he's young, he's scared. Listen, you could run around with a bunch of thugs every day if you want, but at the end of the day, when it's time to pay the piper, and because what happened was he went to the island. He went to Rikers Island. When he got to Rikers Island, he realized, hey man, listen,
check.
The reality of it is this, man. Like again, I don't claim to be a tough guy. You know what I mean? If you push me to the limit, I'll definitely hold my own, but I don't portray that identity. I'll never have, never will.
Right.
My brother portrayed that, but he was a tough guy. He was a tough guy. He's a lot tougher than I'll ever be.
Yeah.
But when you get to the island, criminals then were like legit hardcore criminals. They're not what they are now. These kids nowadays are fucking pussies. And I'll call it as it is, right? Because the generation to me as a whole is a pussy. So if the generation's pussy, then you're going to produce pussy thugs, so to speak, right? So he got fucked up when he went to Rikers Island. Got his shoes taken. They beat the shit out of him until he ran into his crew of people that were there as well. And they protected him until he made bail. Once he made bail, he came to the harsh realization that, hey, listen, I'm not ready for this shit. I'm not ready to go do any hard time with like these legit hardcore criminals that live around them day in and day out. So he winds up fleeing to Israel. We have a family history there. My father spent some time living in the kibbutz. My father's fluent in Hebrew. My father's fluent in Russian. My brother's fluent in Russian, English, obviously, Hebrew, speaks a little Arabic now because of the time he spent living in Israel. So he's living in Israel, gets married. I guess at that time there was no extradition laws between the United States or Israel. Either that or his case wasn't of the magnitude where they were like going out of their way to go and extradite him from Israel and bring him back to the United States. So he's living there. He establishes a whole new life for himself. And then what winds up happening, listen, when you're a criminal, you do criminal shit regardless of where you are, whether you're in New York City or you're in Tel Aviv. Like, it doesn't matter.
Embedded in your being.
Exactly. Yeah. It's in his DNA. So he gets in trouble there. And now he's like, what do I do? So he flies back here. He faces the music.
What did he get in trouble for?
Man, I don't remember. I'll get back to you on that one because him and I still speak here and there. He comes back to the States. Remember, you mentioned the old Rockefeller laws.
Right.
His sentence was 7 years to life. 7 to life. Never caught a case before. They send him 7 years to life.
He comes back to the States, you said?
Yep. Faces the music, turns himself in.
Turned himself.
7 years to life. So now he was doing like hard time. But now this is, his this is bugged out. My memory is sick. My short-term memory is shot. I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. But his fucking prison ID number was, I think, 91A7703, if I'm not mistaken. I remember I would write him letters and stuff like that. And he did the whole 7 years. But what I remember is this. So remember I told you what Ray told me when I was a lot younger. He said, you're lucky because your pops and your brother took the trip for you.
Right.
Right. I went to visit him. And I want to say it was like 1996. It was my first time visiting him. And I had went with my first girlfriend at the time. I think I was like 18 years old. So I go visit him and I'm in the fucking visiting room. I forgot. At that time, he wasn't in a max facility because he was so close to the end of his bid.
Okay.
He was like in a medium. I don't remember what facility it was. It wasn't that far. It was maybe like Orange County or Dutchess County. I don't remember what it was. But I remember sitting in the visiting room and I'm just looking around at the kinds of individuals that are in the visiting room. And I'm like, yo, like, I could never do this. Like, I could never survive, like, having my freedom taken away and being around, like, you know, like legitimate dudes that had to go through a daily struggle to survive, like real criminals. Like, that wasn't who I was, right? I was at the point in my life where I was still enamored by that life.
Yeah.
But visiting him that day, I'm like, yo, I can't do this. Like, this is not for me. Like, these dudes will fucking eat me up.
You needed to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100% I need to see that, man. I need to see that. But it's, yo, dude, like, just bring back memories, man.
Yeah. So you got into that because I asked you about college and how were you able to pay for college?
Oh, shit, man. So my dad comes home my junior year and he goes right back to it, man. Like, slowly but surely. But here's the thing with my dad, man. My dad, he committed like the biggest sin of all, right? He, you know, one of Biggie's 10 crack commandments was never get high on your supply. My dad was using the shit that he was selling. And he was mixing heroin, cocaine. So that shit fuck, you know, now my mom and I are dealing with not only, you know, what he'd been doing his whole life in terms of like selling drugs, but now we're living with an addict as well.
How did you come to that realization?
It was obvious, man. We just knew. Like, you know, you could tell by his demeanor, you know, the way he looked, the way he conducted himself. You know, he'd have white powdery residue, you know, underneath his nostrils, right? So when you at college, so now he comes back home. He reconnects with some old associates, some old friends, maybe people he had met later, maybe people he had met during his time in prison. So freshman year of college, it's August of 1995. I remember clear as day because it's funny. My best friend Rob and I were just talking about how much St. John's tuition had gone up over the years. I was on campus last week waiting for my daughter. My ex was dropping off my daughter to me by the St. John's campus. So I got there early. So I'm walking around like, wow, they really built up this campus. So I'm texting my buddy Rob, I'm like, yo, dude, I'm like, you never believe like how much they built this up. And I can't believe that when I was a freshman, the annual tuition was under $10,000, right? So freshman year, I'm going to school with $9,800 some dollars of cash in my pocket. Yeah.
A wad of
money.
Cash.
Yeah, a mid of cash like this. I'm 17 years old at the time. My birthday's in October. So when I graduated high school, 17, I started college. I was 17. And I walk into the bursar's office, you know, the people walking in with like fucking personal checks, money orders, bank checks.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, I'd like to make a payment. And they're like, okay. And I said, how do you wish to pay? And I'm like, cash. And they were like, you're going to pay like a portion of it, like partial payment? I said, no, I'm going to pay the whole thing for the whole year. They're like, what? And I just take out the money and I smack $9,800 some dollars on the counter. And they're like, oh shit. And like now they're having to sit there and count out this fucking cash. No one paid with cash, but it was still an acceptable form of payment at that point in time.
Right.
So yeah, That's how I paid for my college, man.
All
And
4 years.
yeah, and I went to law school, and my dad's drug proceeds put me through college and law school.
You went to St. John's Law as well?
Negative. I went to University of Detroit Mercy Law School. But yeah, man, yeah. It was wild, man. Listen,
What?
there's a lot of shit. Like I remember when, listen, Jay LaCow is a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
Jay and I had did some podcasting together, and there was a lot of shit that I couldn't say, during the podcast because I was still an active member of the NYPD. But there's shit that I could say now freely. And, Jay and I had one of my friends on the show, and we couldn't release the podcast because a lot of what my friend shared in terms of, one, things that we had did during our earlier years, and two, the fact that he's a known felon. And it was someone I was, close to for several years. We're still close. We still talk,
Wow.
He is super interesting dude. I'm not going to drop names, but listen, when I said to you that, I would learn what the inner city was like based upon my friends that I had in high school. So he lived in East Flatbush, West Indian background.
Mm.
And we would sleep in the same bed as kids, man. Mom would cook for us. His brothers knew me. His friends knew me. They would look at me sideways because what the fuck is this white boy doing out of the neighborhood?
Yeah.
But he was one of the pioneers that founded the Crips gang in East Flatbush. And I had no idea he had taken on that role at that point in time in his life until we were on podcast with Jay. I was in complete, utter disbelief. He's like, yeah, I couldn't tell you that, man. You were a good kid. And he's talking to me like I'm like he's my senior, like we're basically the same age.
Wow.
Yeah, man. But going back, I keep fucking going all over the place.
No. You're good. You're good. You're good, man. It's all connected.
So,
but you said you went to law school.
I did. But so this is wild, man. So my dad, when they say you go to prison, you learn how to become a better criminal. Like my dad definitely 100%, like, that time that he spent locked up in the feds, it wasn't just time wasted. Like he definitely educated himself and became that much more savvy in terms of, understanding how to, do the crime and not having to do the time as a result.
As funny as it sounds, me being in the Mr. Beast challenge in jail, I learned about podcasting through another criminal.
Mm. So
ex-criminal, sorry, Ian.
So my parents would travel quite a bit, and my dad, like I knew who his clients were, and he had one particular client, rest in peace, great dude, came from a very affluent family, had a beautiful apartment on Park Avenue, and he had a few other guys that were like, he's like white collar dudes, businessmen, owned restaurants, owned bars on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and like we would go eat for free. They knew who I was. So my dad and my mom go away on vacation. I'm sorry if my mom listens to this because she had no idea that I had even done this, that my dad and I even had this arrangement. They go on vacation, and my dad pulls me aside, and he's got these fucking envelopes with people's names on it. I'm in college. And he's like, listen, he goes, I know the contents of what's in the envelope. And he goes, listen, every envelope has a name on it. I weighed out how much has to go in each envelope. All the envelopes were sealed. He goes, listen, they're going to call you. They're going to come here and pick up. Hopefully they come here and pick up. And that was it. And my dad goes on vacation, my mom, and he leaves me with his drug packages. And I have his clients calling me to get the product to him.
Wow.
So now, at this time, I'm like, probably a sophomore, maybe a junior in college. So I'm only just a few years shy of joining the police department. And I'm fucking basically working for my dad in his absence while he's on vacation with my mom. And I don't think anybody really knows that. So I just totally shared something with you on your podcast that nobody other than my dad and I were privy to.
Was it that one time?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope.
Wow.
Well, hey, listen, man, but now I'm older.
Yeah.
So now you ask me what my attire would look like when I was really young, when my mom didn't know what the fashion really was like for, the youth, in that time period. I have like my get up.
You got it.
Yeah. My fit is crazy.
Fully New York.
Fully like like, $150 pair of sneakers,
Yeah.
Jabot jeans, Hilfiger, rugbies, polo, everything, costs.
So you're
like
cultured
money.
now.
I'm totally
Culture.
cultured. I'm heavily embedded in hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Was going to clubs. I'm a big hip hop head, big 90s hip hop head.
Who was your favorite back then?
Group or solo?
Who'd you, if I hopped into your car, put on your headphones,
I mean, listen,
who was on repeat?
I still listen to, Nas's Illmatic to me is the greatest hip hop album of all time.
Okay.
I can listen to it from beginning to end, once a day.
Wow.
It's a quick listen, substantive lyrics. Love him. Super gifted guy, a true fucking poet. Group wise, I'm a big Tribe Called Quest fan.
Good pick.
Good pick. Love Tribe Called Quest. Love Outkast. Huge Eminem fan. Huge Eminem. For a white boy to break through the industry the way that he did, how could you not love him?
He's pure talent.
Yeah, he's super gifted. But yeah, going back to my clothes, like it was, I look good. I was sharp.
You had the Timbs.
I remember, so when you get to college, like, you get your first credit card when you're in college. So I had like my first credit card was a MasterCard. I remember it like as if it were yesterday. It had like a picture of like the school in the background, say St. John's University. And I would do whatever the fuck I wanted with that credit card. And Pops would take care of the bill.
Wow.
So it's not like when he went away and I was, doing shit for him, like he paid me for it then. Like if I needed money, my Pops was always there for me.
Just replenishing it.
My man, I had like there was 1 month I did some serious partying with like friends. I think my credit card bill was like $8,000 and he just paid the whole fucking bill for me.
Did you have a car?
So it's funny, I did have a car. So my first car was my late grandfather's 1987 Dodge Omni.
I don't even know.
My kids, yeah, it's like a little hatchback.
Okay.
My kids don't even know how spoiled they are because they would never drive a car like that as any car, even their first car. And then I also worked though. So I wasn't like, I had like a legit job, like my first legit job. I worked from when I was very young. So remember when my dad was locked up, my mom and I were living in Midtown, I worked illegally as a 12-year-old. I love dogs. I'm a huge dog lover. I worked for, the business was called the International Kennel Club. It was a puppy shop in Midtown Manhattan, 54 to 55th Street and 2nd Avenue. The owner's name is Mitch. He had this big, beautiful boxer named Tyson. Mike Tyson was the man back then. So that's obviously where he got the name from. I, stocked the shelves, cleaned up the kennels. I was getting paid below minimum wage, getting cash. Always had a job. And then I eventually started working at the Harley Davidson Cafe, which is a themed restaurant in Manhattan on 56th and 6th Avenue. I worked there all throughout my college years. So my pops would look out. I made my own money. The question was, after my late grandfather's car, I had kind of outgrew it. I bought a little Civic. And my dad, I guess, was trying to teach me a lesson. We went to the dealership and I got a brand new Honda Civic CX, silver in color. And I didn't have enough money to get an air conditioner in the car.
Was this a coupe or four-door?
It was a coupe.
It was a coupe.
It was a coupe. And I was like, yo, I'm telling my pops, he's like, I'm a little short. I need like $900 more to get the car, with air conditioning. And he had given me so much money. He's like, I'm not giving you any more fucking money. So I didn't have any money. So it was like either like I kind of like put it on hold, and get the $900 to get the air conditioner and just get the car then. And I was so stubborn, man. I was in such a rush to get like a brand new car that I said, fuck it. I took the car without AC.
All you had to do was wait for $900.
I just had to wait.
You would have been all right.
I was all right. I'm sweating right now fucking thinking about it. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, man. And then I had that car for a few years, and then I got a Jeep Wrangler when I was like a junior at St. John's. Brand new one. I was spoiled, man. Okay. But the money came easy. You understand? Like my dad wasn't like a blue collar worker. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it kind of like him earning the way he did throughout his life, created some tension in our relationship because I didn't go the same route he went. He provided for me to make sure that I didn't follow in his footsteps. So his value of money was completely different than mine. Like he was always disappointed with my earning capacities because he'd been accustomed to making so much money. And I would always like get into arguments with him, like, yo, dude, like
this is the right way.
Yeah, like you're hustling, you're selling drugs. That's fucking easy money. I'm out here waking up, going to work every day, working 8 + 10 hours. And obviously, when you work for the police department, you're working God knows how many hours at a time. So, he was disappointed. And the disappointment really came.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. It came because I'd eventually gone on to go to law school. And
what inspired you to go to law school?
Always fascinated by the field. Always. I'm quick on my feet. I'm pretty witty. I like debating. I like to win all my arguments. Comfortable speaking in front of people. So I thought it would be something I'd excel at. So I was always like, I would just do enough to get by academically from like early on in my life all the way through like college. I only graduated like a 2.9, I think, from St. John's.
Oh, really?
So my GPA was not the least bit impressive. So I had to really work to gain admission to law school. So I took the LSAT, which is the admissions test that they would look at in order to, be considered for admission at a law school. And I wasn't a very good standardized test taker. Like my SAT score wasn't great. I didn't do much reading for leisure. I did what I had to do to get by.
Gotcha.
And so I started like my LSAT score was like very average, maybe like just slightly below average. And at that point, I came to the harsh realization that I couldn't go to like any schools locally, like around the New York City area or like even relatively close by. I had to like make some sacrifices and move, far. So I was applying to like law schools like in Texas, some in the Midwest. And there was a school, University of Detroit Mercy School of Law in downtown Detroit that gave me an opportunity. And when I went and interviewed with them, I realized that my opportunity wasn't because they were like impressed with my academics. They really were looking to diversify the school. The school mainly only had kids from that Midwest area, from that like, greater Detroit area going there.
Gotcha.
So they wanted to like expand and become like a nationally known school and how to do so. But, hey, let's give this kid from New York City a shot.
St. John's was well known back then, I'm sure.
Yes. Yep. Yes. So I wound up going there. That was tough, man. Like moving from like New York City
to Detroit.
Yo,
out of all places, bro.
Yeah, man. It was like I'm a New York City dude to the core, man.
Yeah.
Like New York City lives within me, even though it's not really now what it was back then.
Right.
It's still a part of like every fabric of who I am as a person. So I didn't know anyone out there. Move out there in August of 2000. And it was me, my mom's, my pops had a puppy named Miko. It was a little pug, great dog, rest in peace. He almost lived 17 years. But he helped me make it through the tough times of being there, like not knowing anyone. He was my only like real friend, during like my first year of school, during the first few months, I should say.
Okay.
So because we didn't know anything about the area, like, we just were trying to find me a place to live. So when we drove out there in a U-Haul, my dad was fucked up at that time, man. He was using heavy at that time. Like he was really bad. He was like speedballing. It was like really, really bad. My mom and I drove in my car. He drove in the U-Haul, and I'm like looking at him. He's fucking swerving on the road, like as we're driving out from New York to Detroit. So we stayed in a hotel in downtown Detroit for like the first few nights while I was doing some apartment hunting, and we found this apartment like in this like big community called, I think it was called Village Green. It was in Harrison Township, Michigan. It was probably like 30 minutes outside of Detroit, maybe 35 minutes, close enough to where like the commute wouldn't be that bad. And so got myself situated there. It was like a little studio apartment. And my dad had flew back home. My mom stayed back helping me get situated as I started, my first year of law school. So my very first day, I'm in contracts class. And we had a professor named Leon Lysat. He was from Butte, Montana. Old school country dude, man, like looked the part, acted the part. And he opens up his class by basically like, lecturing us, telling us all that we have no idea what we got ourselves into, like scaring the shit out of us. Like basically like, and I'm over here like thinking back how I just did enough to get by all these years. I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna fucking make it. Like, I'm not gonna make it. So I leave school. I drive back to my apartment. My mother's there waiting for me, anxiously awaiting for me to tell like what my first day was. And I cried the whole way, man. Yo, man. I'm in the car. I'm like a little fucking kid, man. I'm like crying, like what the fuck am I gonna do, you know? So I get to the apartment. She opens the door and she could see I had been crying. She's like, "Oh my God, like what happened?" And I'm like, "Yo, I don't think I'm built for this, Mom. Like this is not me. You know, I don't know how I'm gonna survive." And she always wanted me to be an attorney, like a legitimate practicing attorney. You know, when you come from an Eastern European Jewish household, they want you to be a doctor or a lawyer, you know.
Right.
But I legitimately wanted to be an attorney. So she's like, "Well, what do you want to do?" She go, "Listen, I understand. You know, if you want to go back, you know, you can go back. It's not, you know, we'll just figure it out." And she was obviously disappointed and sad to see how sad I was. And you know, I cried and we talked and I cried. And it was a tough decision, man. But I fucking stuck it out. I said, "Nah, I'm gonna do this. Like, fuck that." Like, I felt like a sense of determination. Like, I wasn't gonna let Professor Lysat crush my hopes and dreams of like, you know, getting my Juris Doctorate,
Right.
attorney. So she flew back home, and I started the tough process of acclimating myself as a Midwesterner, you know, which was very difficult, like super, like culture shock. So just by virtue of like the way in which I grew up playing ball, the friends I had, high school, the park where I grew up at, most of my friends were Black and Hispanic. I don't know what it was about me. Like, I wasn't trying to portray myself as someone I'm not.
Right.
I just felt at home around Black and brown people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The music, the culture, my upbringing, playing ball.
I thought you were Spanish.
Everyone thinks I am.
Yeah.
Even till this day. Actually, I was at the barbershop today and the woman started talking to me in Spanish. I was like, nah. But so I lost my train of thought. Where we at, brother? I'm sorry.
No, you're just going through you wanting to stick it out.
Oh yeah. So I'm out there and I'm like, you know, it's like a whole different culture. Like, it's just not as diverse. It's very segregated. But I will tell you this funny story. I got lost one night in Detroit. And this was actually not during my first year of law school. This is my second year of law school. I had moved to an apartment. I rented a beautiful loft in downtown Detroit on Jefferson Avenue, where it was like almost within walking distance from my law school. And I got lost, man. And this was like before GPSs and shit. And I wound up on some streets, my guy, where like I wouldn't even think about stopping and asking for directions.
It was looking like 8 Mile when
it was
Papa Doc shot himself.
Yo, my man, I don't even know what it was. I don't know where I was. But there isn't a part in New York where I wouldn't get out of my car and like go into a bodega, like, and get myself something to drink. You know, or if I needed to ask someone a question, I wouldn't ask them that question. I don't care where I am. But Detroit's different, man. You know, that's why when, you know, like, you know, bad dudes, thugs, like however you want to refer to them as, you know, think that they're tough coming from cities like New York. They have no idea. Like, Detroit is tough, man. And my sophomore year, I did an internship at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, which is like, you know, being like in Bronx County Criminal Court, you know. So I worked with the prosecutors there. I did.
So this is your second year?
My second year law school. And the reason this is like, what I just said is a great segue into that, because New York is soft compared to like what I witnessed in Detroit. I'd be in these criminal courtrooms and, you know, dudes would be on trial for like murder. And man, these dudes were just cold-blooded, man. Like, you look at them in their eyes, man, and they were cold. Like, there was like nothing there, man. You know, regular dudes, like, you know, dudes that you and I grew up with, you know, sitting there on trial, like for something they did. We're taking another person's life, and you could just tell, like, yo, they were like real scary dudes, man. Like, a lot of these guys in New York City, you've seen it, you know, being a cop all those years, going to court, like, they talk that shit all they want when they're on the streets, man. When they're facing like real time,
they melt.
They melt, dude. They fold under pressure.
What do you think it is about the culture with New York? I posted something recently with Cameron talking about how New Yorkers think that they're the toughest. At one time, he brought his crew down to Florida and just a bunch of crap. And his crew wound up getting stuck up by some guys that were in KFC, and New Yorkers were like, oh, New York is in the building or whatnot. And they was like, all right, we're going to show you. They stuck him up and carjacked him.
I think it was on his It Is What It Is show, right? On one of his podcast episodes.
Yeah, and I also posted it on one of my reels.
Oh, I didn't see it on your reel, but I think like you're bringing back, like it sounds familiar to me, the story.
Yeah.
See, like dudes from places like the real hardcore dudes from cities like Detroit, Chicago, like Miami, like they laugh at New Yorkers that portray themselves as being tough. So they almost as if like they're like challenged to where they want to do some of that to New Yorkers to show them, hey, listen, slow your roll, my guy.
Why do you think that there's so much bravado with New Yorkers? What is it? Is it because we're always in the movies? Because hip hop was born here? And you see a lot of it on TV and entertainment where they feel like they're owed that respect. And then the movies. Then you got the movies. There's a lot of movies that are based on New York.
I think New Yorkers definitely have a type of swag that like no other place in the world has.
They do.
Right? And I think a lot of times, you know, when you have that swag about you, right, you start thinking you're tough versus just being like a trendy dude from New York or trendy chick from New York, right?
Comes an act.
Right. So you have to like, you kind of have to portray yourself as being that tough guy because New York has always been viewed as like a tough city.
Right.
So you have to portray yourself as such, right? And that goes for any New Yorker. Like you don't gotta be from the hood, from the ghetto to carry that with you on a day-to-day basis. But you know, guys like Cameron that grew up like in housing, right? Tough guys are legit guys that were like in that element on a day-to-day basis. Like they're definitely tough. But I think that they would maybe portray themselves as being a lot tougher than they really are. Hence why when they had that incident that happened in Florida, right? It was the Floridians, like the real dudes looking. I'm like, nah, we're gonna show these New Yorkers, man. Like they're not as tough as they think they are.
I don't think that they realize that there's always somebody tougher. There's always a hood that's gonna be worse. Yeah. What's tough here is not considered tough in other states, other countries, because the environments are different.
Yes.
So I think what they consider to be the bottom of the barrel here in New York has been, you know, they say, okay, this is the gutter, but they haven't seen what the gutter really is in Detroit or Chicago.
Right. It's crazy. Actually, I got an interesting Detroit story.
Go for it.
We're talking about like police and law enforcement.
Yeah.
So I was just actually texting my boy Ronaldo yesterday. We were talking about sports betting and football game last night. Real good dude. So my sophomore year of law school, I buy a brand new car, man. I treat myself. I buy an Acura 3.2 TL, brand new.
Oh, I love those.
Great car. And I'm living in downtown Detroit. So my buddy Ronaldo lived outside of Detroit. So we had like a boys poker night. We like go to my friend's house, play poker, watch sports, bet sports, drink, hang out. So Ronaldo drives to my apartment in Detroit. We jump in my Acura and we drive out to my other friend's house where we had the poker night out. So we're hanging out, we're doing our thing, good night, whatever. So now we're driving back to my apartment because he's got to grab his car. I'm going home. He's got to grab his car and go back home. So we get off on we're about to get off the exit ramp in Detroit, right on Jefferson Avenue. And I have a green light. All of a sudden, some fucking guy blows the red light. And he just suddenly like appears right in front of my car. He could have killed me. Legit killed me. Yeah. He could have easily T-boned me. God was on my side. Like my family was obviously, someone up there was watching over me, and I wound up smashing into him. Remember when I told you I'm a little bit of a hothead? So after, I get my bearings, I'm like, oh shit, like we're good. It was really weird. I don't remember the airbags deploying, but it was like a pretty hard hit.
Okay.
And I look and like this dude is like hammered. He's got like hockey equipment in his back. I'm in his back seat. And he's like visibly intoxicated. We're sober. Like I was very careful with that. I never took that lightly, like drinking and driving. So I look at my car and the car was like 4 or 5 days old. And the dude, like now you could tell he's in a state of shock. He's intox, but he's sitting there like, he's like stoic. He's a big guy. He's a hockey player, older than me, definitely stronger than me. I don't know what happened. I start just punching him, like, I'm hitting him, like the window's open. I'm just popping him in his face. He's not doing anything. I keep hitting him. My buddy grabs me. He's holding me back. 911 was called, and
he's just eating it.
Oh, he's eating it.
You're just eating
but
it.
he's like I'm hitting him. He's like hunching over like toward the front passenger, and then like coming back up. And then I hit him like 4 or 5. I don't actually know what lie, man. I don't know how many times I hit him, but I was hit from that distance. I couldn't get like a full wind up.
You're reaching in,
right? So I'm reaching in, right? So, but I hit him pretty hard. I'm a pretty decently strong guy, And plus, I had like my adrenaline. I was pissed off, and he was definitely bleeding a little bit from his lip. So my buddy grabs me, and he's holding me, and I don't even know how he held me, dude. I have no idea. So, DPD responds, and it was like these two, like, well, actually, no, one was a young dude, 2 black dudes. One was an old timer, definitely had some time on the job. One was like a little bit of a younger cat that was obviously getting educated by the older guy.
Right.
So they're like interviewing me. This is why I know I'm crazy. I'm not right in the head. These cops are interviewing me, right? At the accident scene. And I'm like, I'm not calm. Like my adrenaline's still going. I'm looking at my car. I'm fucking livid. And the guy gets out of the car now. So now like, and dude, he's still like, you could tell like he's drunk. Still like you're like your young child will look at him like, listen, this guy's not right. He's definitely like under the influence of something, right? So I'm telling him what happened, how we were exiting the ramp and we had the right of way, we had the green light, steady green light. And he just suddenly like ran his red from his direction and appeared in front of us. And he's like, I'm like sitting here. He's probably like maybe like 15 feet away from me. The guy that, caused the accident, the Intox male. I'm using like police jargon now. Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, he ran. And then he's like, I didn't run a red light. Like he like looked at the cop. Lenny, tell me why I lunged at him and started hitting him again in the presence of the 2 cops from Detroit Police Department. So now I'm under arrest. I'm under arrest, right? They grabbed me, and they were big dudes, man. Like, listen, I wasn't a small guy, but they fucking manhandled me, bro.
Really?
Click, click, boom, boom. And the cuffs were tight. Because I was clearly like, looking back now as a former member of law enforcement, like I was clearly out of fucking line. How disrespectful of me to attack this dude right in the presence of these cops, right? Click. Yo, they just threw me in the backseat like fucking cattle, bro. I'm sitting, the windows are rolled up. It's wintertime. And I start like hyperventilating. Lenny, I thought I was gonna die, man. I couldn't fucking breathe. Windows rolled up, adrenaline going. The cuffs are tight, like they're almost cutting the circulation off my wrists. And I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm like hyperventilating. I can't fucking breathe. And I see my buddy Ronaldo having a conversation with the 2 cops. And it feels like forever, man. And I'm like, now I fall over. Now I'm like laying like sideways in the seat. I can't get myself back up, dude. It was crazy. Sweating profusely.
When it's freezing out.
Yeah, sweating profusely, gasping for air as if I was like an asthmatic. And then suddenly the door opens. I must have been in there for about 10 minutes. And my buddy's just like, you could tell he's like having a conversation, trying to persuade them to like let me out, like uncuff me, like let this dude go. And it felt like forever. I felt like I was in there like hyperventilating for an hour. The door opens. They fucking just scoop me out like a small child, like put me on, stand me up and like uncuff me. And the one cop was like, yo, you fucking lucky, man. Your boy, he's a good dude. He spoke of you the way that you did. We're gonna let you slide and shit. And I'm like, yo.
They talking just like that.
Yeah, they're talking like that. Now here's the thing, man. Like, listen, this is like one of the most known corrupt police departments in the fucking world. You understand? And I didn't even think about like, let's say I would have been processed. What would have happened? Like what direction, what turn my life would have taken? But can you imagine what, I guess, Detroit, Wayne County central booking would have looked like?
I want to think of that.
I mean, I've been in handcuffs before, but like cuffed, let go, that's a crazy story, interesting one. But this one was like, I was only able to think clearly after I was out of the cuffs, and I was able to really reflect on my actions, how I conducted myself. And at that time, I'm like 22 years old, 23. I'm like, damn, like this could have ended really badly for me. And it could have changed the whole trajectory of my life. But
Unreal.
wild.
Unreal.
Wild.
Man. So you complete law school.
Yes.
Probably like a year later, right?
So I got to share this one story with you because it's going to make sense as to why I'm sharing it. Okay. So so I never wanted to be a cop. Understand something. Like I wasn't like, remember how I grew up? Well, my element of my upbringing was like,
yeah,
you know, from my peers to my family, I didn't like cops. Cops were like bad to me, right? They were like my opponent, so to speak. So I was a big New Jersey Nets fan as a kid. Never took to the Knicks at that time when the Knicks were like really playing amazing basketball during the early mid-90s. So my buddy Mike and I, he was older than me. We used to buy 5-game packages for the New Jersey Nets. We'd go to Port Authority, jump on the bus, go to the Meadowlands, go to a game and come back. At that time, I was living in Midtown. So we're coming back. We exit Port Authority and we're walking down 42nd Street. This is the old Times Square, the old school 42nd Street, like where like anything went, anything goes, peep shows, strip clubs, drugs, prostitutes, whatever you wanted, right? It's kind of like what the left wants it to look like all over again after the cleanup happened, right? So I'm 15 years old and I'm talking to my buddy. He's about 7 years my senior too. And if you remember, they used to hand out pamphlets to like, you know, get you to go to these like peep shows and strip clubs and everything like that. So I was a polite kid, man. That's one thing about me. I'm super polite. Was polite then, that much more polite now as an adult, of course. And so the guy goes to hand me a pamphlet and I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm like, no, thank you. Like, I'm a minor. Like, you know, even though I'd already been low key, been to a peep show a few times, even though I'm only 15 years old, but we just wanted to keep it moving. It was late, wanted to get home. And he's like cutting off my pathway. Like he's following me. Like, I'm not sure if he's understanding that I'm not interested and I don't want to take the pamphlet from him.
Even though you said no, thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So he's like, and I'm like, so now the hothead of me comes out. So I'm like, okay. So I take the thing, I crumple it up and I throw it on the street. All of a sudden I hear a voice. Hey, pick that up. And I turn around, it's a cop. It's a uniformed cop. And I know he saw what happened, right? And I'm like, I'm not picking it up. Like, I know you saw what just happened. This cop comes over to me, man. He goes, oh, fucking wise ass. And I go to respond to what he's saying. All of a sudden, my head hits up against, you know, the metal gates that would close like storefronts.
Oh, yeah.
So he throws me up against the storefront, the metal gate. My head hits the gate. I can feel like a lump growing on my head as he has his forearm up against my neck. And he goes, I fucking love smart asses. Like he goes, I could fucking kill you right now and nobody can say or do nothing about it. I'm 15 years old, and he's not letting me, and I feel the pressure of his forearm just fucking on my neck, like, and like my head is like, I feel the pressure of the gate like closer and closer to my forehead.
For those that are listening, was he a white cop, black cop?
White cop.
Okay. The reason why I asked that,
white cop.
I figured he was a white cop.
Yeah.
You look white as well.
No surprise. So,
no, but I say that just to say, you know, people feel like white cops, they only target other black people, other minorities.
Right.
But
right. And I think then like my hair like was different. I didn't have like I started cutting my hair close when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But I was still like, you could tell I was a white kid.
Okay.
Like, you could tell that.
Okay.
I know where you're getting at with that, right? Yeah. You're throwing the race factor in.
Right.
It always is a factor, so it makes sense you making mention of that.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, he's like he's not letting go. He's whispering all sorts of crazy shit. And I'm like, I'm sitting there now. So now like the tears,
those old school cops are crazy, bro.
Are starting to roll down. And my buddy's like in the background, like, hey, please, man, please, sir. Like, you know, just let him go. Like, he's a good kid or whatever. And it finally lets me go, man. I had a lump on my head, man. And I was like, holy shit. Like,
So what did that do for your
man,
relation? You hated cops before. What happened after
it wasn't
that?
so I couldn't say I necessarily hated cops.
Yeah,
but after that interaction, I fucking hated cops, dude.
Mm.
Hated them. Hated them. I got bullied by a cop who saw all that transpired that led to me doing what I did not. Listen, I'm not justifying my littering, but it's the old Times Square. Like that little piece of paper was nothing in the grand scheme of things, right?
Right.
But he felt like he wanted to puff his chest out and do what he did and bully me the way that he did, put fear in my heart the way that he did. And so from that point on, I just was like, yo, I couldn't stand cops at all, you know? We had some interactions after. I had some interaction with cops after, which weren't as bad. You know, we dibble and dabble, smoking some weed here and there. And we were out by NYU one night hanging out with like me and my friends, teenagers. And the cops walk up on us, beat cop walks up on us, sees us smoking. And we're like, oh shit. Because, you know, back then, you know, dudes were getting locked up.
Of course, yeah.
You know, so I was like, oh shit. And this dude was like, the fuck y'all doing out here, man? You crazy? This is New York University, right? What are you doing? And he's like, yo, just fucking put that shit out. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that's it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thank God.
Yeah, you remember that lump? You remember that lump?
Yeah. I was like, oh, cool. I'm like, okay. So now I'm like, all right, this dude was cool. But like, this was years later. This was at this time, I'm like maybe like 17, 18 years old.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay. He was mad cool. He just let it slide, you know. So again, I had no aspirations of being a cop. I was home my second year of law school. I'm on a computer. This is in the very early stages of like the internet. Pop-up ad comes up for the NYPD, you know, click here to like, you know, apply for the exam. I'm like, click, enter my information. I would go home.
What year is this?
My second year of law school.
No, but what?
2000. This was shortly after 9/11 had happened.
Okay.
So fill out the application and think nothing of it. I'm going home for midwinter break. And that very week that I was flying back home, I get a letter in the mail to come in to take the exam on that particular Saturday where I was going to be back home in the city. I was never going to fly home just to take the exam. So it was kind of just meant to be, I guess. So I want to say it was like February of 2002. So I fly home. I'm hanging out hard. My mother knew that I had the exam the following morning, that Saturday morning at Murray Bertram High School. And I go out, I'm hanging out with friends. Like, listen, I'm home from the Midwest. Obviously, I'm gonna go hang out, go to like one of my favorite hip hop lounges, you know, hang out with my friends.
What lounge?
Man, my favorite lounge still to this day no longer exists. It was called Nell's. 14th Street between 7th and 8th Avenue. It was Thursday nights were like the best.
Was that where New York Undercover? Did they go there?
They might have.
At the end of every episode, or was that like a jazz club?
So the upstairs of Nell's looked like a jazz club.
I think it was.
Downstairs was like the dance floor where the DJs would spin. Great club. I wasn't there. I don't remember what club I was at because Nell's was Thursday night. This was a Friday night that I had gone out.
Okay.
So I get home to my parents' place probably like 4 or 5 in the morning. And like the test is like 9 o'clock in the morning. So I had a few drinks. My mother comes in like at like 8 o'clock in the morning. She's like, wake up, what are you doing? I'm like, she's like, starting, like, I'm sleeping. She goes, you got to take that test today. And I was like, man, forget that. I'm like, I don't want to be a cop. Like, forget that test. She's like, no. She goes, you're going to go take that test. And I was like, Ma, I just want to go back to sleep. Listen, just go take the test. You never know. Dude, I don't know how I managed to get up out of bed. I didn't have my car with me. So we're living on 90th Street. They still live on 90th Street. They still live on 90th Street now. Lived back then on 90th Street as well. So I get up. I walk to the 86th Street train station, take the train down. I walk in there. I look like a hot mess. They must have thought I was like on drugs or something like that. Took the test. Didn't think anything of it. Graduated law school in 2003. And I was considering staying there. I was I was dating a girl in law school. We had gotten engaged. So I was still living in Michigan, broke the engagement, came back home, and I had to take the New York bar exam. I was just like kind of burnt out, tired. I like needed a break, dude.
Right.
So I started like working. I was working for like a men's skin. My mom was working in Bloomingdale's at the time. She got me a job working for Jack Black, which is like a men's skincare line. They had like really good grooming products. So they were like just opening up a counter in Bloomingdale's. So the manager of like all of like skincare like hooked me up. He had a good rapport with my mom. I started working there, and then I get a letter in the mail, and they're offering me to go into the police academy in July of 2004. So I'm like, oh, what do I do? You know, again, still have no aspiration of being a cop whatsoever. And I'm like, well, maybe I could just go for a few years, you know, get my feet wet, you know, learn about criminal justice, you know, learn that side of like law and practice.
Right.
And then, you know, do it for 5 years so, and then leave and just, you know, practice law and be like, you know, either a district attorney or, you know, be a defense attorney. So I said, fuck it. So I went in and managed to not leave when I thought I was going to leave, because I started really enjoying what I was doing early on in my career.
This episode of Purpose Over Pension is sponsored by Keys for Heroes, founded by NYPD Sergeant and Loan Officer Malcolm Marcel. Malcolm's mission is simple: help first responders become homeowners with straight answers, white glove service, and special programs like the Community Heroes Lender Credit, where you get up to $3,000 back at closing. If you've been thinking about buying a home, refinancing, or seeing where you stand, text the word PURPOSE to 631-817-HOME. That's 631-817-4663. Keys for Heroes, helping first responders get the keys they deserve.
You remember when, you know, we were talking about earlier in the conversation about what it was like for me, like making that adjustment, you know, having been familiar with those types of communities from my upbringing, my growing up, and then eventually becoming a police officer. I said to you the greatest difficulty I had was coming to grips with the fact that I was in fact a police officer in that uniform and everything like that.
Where did you start working?
I started in the 46th precinct.
46.
So the 46 is interesting, and I'm gonna tell you why, because I'm gonna take you back so you can understand with like why, you know, it hit me the way it did when I got assigned there. So sophomore year of high school, my buddy Trent and I were both attending LaSalle, and the varsity team was playing at Fordham University, city quarterfinals, Sunday morning. And we took the train. At that time, I was living in Midtown. We took the train, Grand Central, took the 4 train all the way up to Fordham Road. Sunday morning, we walked from Jerome Avenue all the way to the Fordham University campus. So we get to the campus, Sunday morning, relatively quiet. Now we're on the 4-8 precinct side of Fordham Road. Because I'm sorry, no lie, I'm sorry. We're on the 5. So Fordham Road, for, you know, Bronx people I know, especially cops, you know, one side of Fordham is patrolled by the 48th precinct, while the other side is patrolled by the 52nd precinct.
Okay.
So I believe the campus itself is on the 52nd precinct side. So we just entered the campus. Sunday morning, quiet, my boy and I. 2 guys run up on us. 2 young cats run up on us. Kid has his hands in his pocket. Yo, run your shit. Yo, empty your pockets. And I'm like, what kind of bullshit is this? He's got his hand in his pocket, and then, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, I said, cut that. Like, seriously, like, you're not going to rob me with your fingers, like, in your pocket or whatever, you know? Because they were young. They were, like, probably close in age to us. And he was like, yo, I ain't fucking playing. He pulls out the little fucking revolver. And I was like, oh, shit.
Wow.
And they wound up robbing us. No, I didn't have any jewelry or anything like that. I had maybe like $25. I don't remember how much it was in our pockets. They took our money. And I was like, oh my God. I had a gun pulled on me before, but that was in the city by some crazy dude. But I'm like, you know, I'm like, I can't let this happen. So now we're like, how are we gonna get admission now? Because they took our money.
Right.
So, we walk up to the front of like Rose Hill Gymnasium, and I'm like, hey, look, like, listen, we're students of LaSalle Academy. Like, we just got robbed at gunpoint on campus. They were like, no shit. I'm like, yeah, no, for real.
Did y'all call the police or anything? Or you just wanted to get
Yo, I didn't call the cops.
Mm.
Crazy. I just wanted to go watch basketball.
Right.
So I wound up like, getting the attention of one of the assistant coaches from the varsity team. And he basically just like, got us in, got us tickets. We walked in and he bought us lunch or whatever the case may be. And
that's awesome.
That was it. That was it. So
so that's your memory of the force.
So that's my memory of like, that area.
That area, yeah.
So now I'm in the academy and I was hanging out with this girl in the academy. And I'm a big sneaker guy. So, Fordham Road is notorious for like selling like really, really good sneakers. So she and I were in the academy. Like I said, we take a spin up to Fordham Road. There was a sneaker shop that I liked on the 4-6 precinct side of Fordham Road, just right west of Webster Avenue. And I go in the store, I buy a pair of sneakers. I'm coming out and like, yo, the area is crazy. Like it's busy, a lot's happening. And this is just shortly before we were getting our assignments as to where we were going once we graduated. And I'm like, I sure hope I don't wind up in the fucking Bronx. I'm such a Manhattanite. I don't know the Bronx really well outside of like, playing high school basketball, going to Cardinal Hayes or Hollows, St. Raymond's High School. Like those are the only areas I was familiar just from playing high school basketball. Gotcha. And then of course, being a Yankee fan, I knew 161 and River.
Right.
So I'm like, damn, I sure hope, because they gave us like this dream sheet, if you remember, you wrote down places you wanted to go.
What was it, like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, something like that. And the Bronx was nowhere near. No, I had nothing.
You had nothing on
I had nothing on Patrol Borough Bronx on my dream sheet. I wanted nothing to do with the BX. It was just dirty and grimy. I wanted nothing to do with it. So lo and behold, we get our assignments, and where do I get assigned? The 46th precinct. I'm like, fucking gotta be kidding me, man. Get there, and it was an absolute blast. It was awesome. It was just such a busy, close-knit command. It just helped really like build me as a cop. Like I carried so many things with me throughout the course of my career that I learned from working in that precinct. The seasoned older guys that gave me solid advice, bosses, just everything about it. It was a busy area. It was referred to at one point in time as the deadliest square mile in the world. It was nonstop, man. Like there was something always happening.
So what was it that allowed you to learn and enjoy it as opposed to getting burnt out in an area like that? Because it's kind of a thin line, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm just listen. Honestly, man, I didn't like a lot of the cops. I found myself wanting to constantly gravitate to like the cops that grew up in the city in the 5 boroughs. I didn't like the Rockland County, the Orange County, the Nassau, the Suffolks. Like they were just clowns to me. Like, but yet these were the guys and girls that really aspired to always want to be cops, right? Where I feel like the real New Yorkers from like the 4 boroughs, because Staten Island really I don't count, and not, of course, I don't think anyone from Staten Island ever wound up, working the 46th precinct unless it was as a punishment. But I feel like the people that are not from the city always aspire to be cops, whereas the people that are from the city, it was kind of like, well, fuck it, I ain't gonna do anything else. Yeah, give it a shot. I'm gonna get probably in trouble running these streets or, working some other job, like sounds like a decent career. Like, I know the streets relatively well. And I also believe, man, not for nothing, Lenny, when I look back, a lot of the friends that I had came from similar walks of life as I did. And I suspected that early on. And then as I developed close relationships with guys, especially like guys that worked like as undercovers, like I learned like, yo, these dudes came from some serious backgrounds. Like their families were involved in some serious gangster type shit.
I'm going to say this. I'm from Long Island. I grew up in Far Rockaway, Queens to the age of 10. Moved from Far Rockaway to Freeport. So I'm pretty much from Long Island. and I make this statement because I have to say, to me, the best cops, and obviously there's exceptions, but the best cops and the cops that complain the least are from New York City.
Facts.
That's my personal observation, me being from Long Island. So you guys can come at me all you want, but that's my and honestly, the people that I got along with the most were usually from New York City as well. I mean, I got along with mostly everybody. You know, me being from Long Island, I knew how to adapt and to adjust.
There's exceptions though, right? So you'd be like the exception. Like there's rules, excuse me, and there's exceptions.
Right.
Make no mistake about it. The perps knew who was from the city and who was from outside the city as well.
Right.
Especially when you're talking about young cops, because the people that were not from the city as young cops, not really knowing the streets, not really being familiar with the profession and that element, it was written all over their face. If I saw it, I know the guy other people saw it. 100%. I know the community saw it.
100%.
And they would prey on them.
I think the only thing that helped me is, for one, where I grew up was very diverse.
On the island, you mean?
Yes. Freeport. Equal black, equal Spanish, equal white. Not only that, but all of my family still lived in New York City, aside from my mother and father. So I would frequently still visit Jamaica, Queens, Ozone Park, Far Rockaway, Brooklyn.
Yeah, Far Rock is no joke.
Yeah. It's a tough place.
Yeah, no, it is.
So that's just my observation. I'm kind of glad that you're bringing that up.
Yeah, I mean,
to kind of supplement my thoughts, because I know
they get mad.
I was gonna make a post.
Mad.
I was gonna make a post on this, but I was like, bro, the flack and the nonsense that I would have to hear as a result is just not worth it. So I'm gonna just keep it to myself.
You mean from the people that were not from the city?
Of course.
Oh no, they do. They get very offended by this.
I know, but listen,
but I would tell you, like, I would look you right in the face and be like, listen, it is what it is.
But here's my thing. I don't understand why people would be offended by this. If the people that are policing the area which they are from, if they know how to adapt quicker as a police officer and speak to people easier and understand where they're coming from and know how to maneuver, like, wouldn't you kind of expect for them to have that edge?
Sure.
Right. Well, so why be offended by that?
Because they're not processing it with objectivity. They're getting their feelings involved as if you're trying to personally attack them.
Right.
Right. Here's another thing too, man. Like, think about it this way. If you allocated personnel based upon using like where you grew up as an actual criteria as to where you're going to be assigned, you would have precincts running way more efficiently. You would have less tensions between community and cops, because a lot of the tensions are a direct result of police not being familiar with people that are the makeup of those respective communities.
100%. Right?
So like, listen, let's be honest. You and I work with a lot of cops that probably went to high school where there was maybe one black or brown person in their graduating class.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like so, my Long Island looks different from a lot of other people's Long Island.
I'm sure.
So Freeport is considered the ghetto on Long Island, believe it or not. There's a nice side. I wound up living on the nice side. But as a whole, because there's black and because there's Spanish, that's the ghetto.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's really not, but that's how they perceive it to be. Right. I mean, it's just, you could tell they didn't know, like, when we would go to jobs or crime scenes, you know, and you had to like quell a certain situation, there was like a complete like
disconnect.
Like, there was a communication barrier there, like an unexplainable one. You know, you can only learn but so much by watching a movie, listening to music. Like, you're not going to learn how to talk to people. Yeah. And the sad part about it is that some cops spend 20 plus years working in that field and still don't know how to talk to people.
Well, what about the people who have a mother or a father that were police officers and get on a job and still don't know how to talk to people because of what it is that you just said? They leave at 20 years, 25 years. And it was never really their purpose or their priority to get to know these people. Right. It was just about, what can these people do for me? How can I act like I'm serving but I'm really after what it is that I have to gain from this.
The problem is this, man, is that as cops, especially when you work in busy commands, you get lost in all of the negativity because as cops, the sole purpose of your job is to address and to solve said negativities. So you forget about the fact that you have honest, hardworking, law-abiding citizens living in those communities. And I think that's one of the greatest problems you have within the field. And that kind of contributes to the tension because you lose your sensitivities to the good people and you solely focus on the bad.
I agree with that 100%. And to add a layer to that, I think that the disconnect for those that are not used to policing or being in these neighborhoods before being police officers, when you watch TV, when you watch the movies, it's all run and gun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they want to portray that. I think that they want to place themselves in that character that they watched in the movie or that TV show. And they forget about the personal element.
Right. I was good at navigating through both of those waters. Like I enjoyed running around, like locking up bad guys and just the whole like cat and mouse game of being a proactive cop. But I would also make sure I took time to take a step back and to appreciate other aspects of the field and the community.
It's funny that you say that because with your father's background and what you were used to or how you were used to growing up and disliking cops, not hating them, but disliking them because they were the ops, right?
Right.
How do you get to this place where you do want to be proactive?
I'm a competitive person by nature. So to me, I don't mean to sound inhumane or callous or what
No,
I'm
I
about
mean,
to say, but
it
became a
honest,
game.
It's the honesty.
It became a game for me. You understand? Coming from the kind of background that I came from, dealing with perps, with criminals was very easy for me because we would talk to each other like this, no matter how much they hated me. So long as there was a level of respect, I would always show them the same level of respect that they're showing me. And based upon my background, I was able to cultivate confidential relationships with some of these people that respected me as a person, which meant to me more than anything. Respecting the uniform is one thing. Respecting what lies beneath the uniform is another. And that's what I always took pride in.
Right.
You know, because at the end of the day, before the day starts, before your tour starts, you know, I'm just Eli Slavkin. I'm a civilian, much like the members of the community that I'm patrolling once I have that uniform on. So if you could respect Ellie, not Officer or Detective Ellie, that's what matters to me.
I like that. But when you go and you talk about the competitive element, when you say competitive, does that deal with you competing against other police officers?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. What I mean by that,
or more so getting that respect and showing people that it's not like I'm like, for me, at one point it was like, I'm out there to show people that I'm not like every other police officer. And if I'm challenged by somebody, this is my opportunity to challenge them in their mindset and to not break them down, but to get to a place where we're both eye to eye and
right.
we're both humbling ourselves from what I do for a living and who it is that they are in this neighborhood so that we can see each other as men.
So going back to the competitive nature for me, my attitude towards that was, you're a criminal, you're out there doing whatever dirt you do on a day-to-day basis. So getting that element, removing that element from the community became like a sport to me. Right? That was like, that's something that was like, it would fuel my competitive nature. Right? Like, you circle the block, you know what's going on. Oh, this guy's a corner boy, he's working a corner, this kid's the lookout, you know what I mean? This is the person that's going to purchase some narcotics, this is the kid that has beef with this kid on this block. He might be holding a firearm, he might be walking or conducting a certain way, making certain movements, walking a little heavy to one side, looking around, being a little bit overly alert because he knows that he's potentially being watched by the cops. So I really took pride in all of the analysis that went along with the process of what the end result you'd want to be.
So real life cops and robbers.
Yeah.
Not to make it sound, not to be insensitive.
Right.
But
it was my job.
Yeah.
It was my job. Like, I mean, listen, looking back now, as a 40-year-old man who's retired from the police department, I did a lot of dumb shit. Like, I let my competitive juices, take over rational thinking at times, where I was a little bit reckless, not in terms of violating people's rights, but just my overall approach. Maybe not tactical enough, maybe not sitting back and being a little bit more observant, kind of like jumping the gun, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'm sure you can attest to that as well. Like, being younger, like, you just don't have that level of maturity where you're able to like exercise self-control over your actions and really like think about things before you act on it.
I like that. I'd received a DM from a young man that was in the academy, and he was like, how do you avoid mistakes as a police officer? How do you avoid bad decisions as a police officer? I said, bad decisions and mistakes are going to happen. It all depends on how severe you allow it to be, how severe you allow that. There comes a point where something's a straight up mistake, and it also comes a point where it's because you're reckless and you're not using your wisdom and you're not using your discernment because you want to reach your end goal.
Or you're being influenced by bad cops.
Correct.
Which is typically what winds up happening. And that's really what ultimately is the lead cause as to why other cops tend to make poor decisions. It's just poor leadership and, just allowing yourself to be influenced by the wrong people.
That's a fact.
Like any other aspect of life.
That's a fact.
Right. But that level of enjoyment of policing only lasted but so many years for me, right? The culture changed drastically over the years, which you are very familiar with yourself.
Absolutely.
I was very fortunate. I cultivated some really good relationships with people in the department, and it allowed me to move around early on in my career. My educational background was a factor at times.
Sure.
People looked at me as I was smarter than they are. I'm like, no, I'm not smarter than you are. I just made certain sacrifices and worked harder academically at this stage of my life. And I was always, I always remember to tell people, like, if that's something you aspire to do, like, anyone could do it. Like, I am like living proof that if you want to be an attorney, trust me when I tell you that if I could do it, you can do it. So it was like a gift and a curse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I moved around quickly. I went to narcotics with about 3.5 years on the job. Young. I was originally supposed to be an undercover. And then once my first daughter was born, my family forbid me from thinking about going down that path. I was ready to go. Like, they were gonna.
You mentioned family. What are they thinking about this whole process? Obviously, your mom, get up, take that test.
Right.
Pops.
My mom telling to take the test was like, hey, you never know. Like, you may need to fall back on this. And at the end of the day, I kind of did use the NYPD to fall back on as far as like my career. My pops was disappointed. He was like, wow. Not so much that I was going to be a cop, but like, yo, we wasted all of this money investing in you, education, college tuition, law school tuition, just for you to become a cop. Like, if that's really what you wanted to do, you could have saved money and time and just like, did 2 years of college and then went ahead and became a police officer. So he was disappointed.
Well, even still, he was disappointed that you didn't follow his path in a way, right?
No, he never wanted me to follow his path.
Okay, he just wanted you to be able to make the same amount of money that he was making.
Right. So going back to what we talked about, because like at the end of the day, like my parents had a certain way of thinking that was like old school. So they were like under the false impression that if you were an attorney or a doctor, you were going to be very well off. And, even when I was in law school and doing internships, I had worked in the prosecutor's office and I worked for a judge. I learned that the vast majority of attorneys are earning average salaries.
Let me tell you this. I wanted to be an attorney as well. So hearing you talk about all of this is very refreshing. I worked at a law firm for 3 years because I wanted to get my feet wet, and a friend of the family was able to get me a job at a law firm. About 2 years in, I started to speak to a lot of the associates at the firm, and they said, Lenny, do not become an attorney. I said, whoa, why not? You look like you could. And they said, the amount of time that I spend here every day, the amount of time that I spent in law school, and the amount of money that I spent on law school, and adding all three of those things up, it just doesn't make sense.
Right.
I'm here 12, 13 hours a day, making $40,000, $45,000. Unless you're a partner,
Right.
don't do it.
Listen, don't get me wrong. Like, I know people that are very well off who are attorneys. Like, my best friend's brother is a partner at a white shoe law firm in the city. And, he's a millionaire.
But he's never home.
Well, now at this, he's he's a
stage,
partner now. So
okay.
he's like, at this stage, he's able to dedicate himself to his family. He worked very hard to where he's currently at in the firm. But, I befriended some ADAs throughout my career, some of whom I'm still very good friends with. And, when I'd have conversations with them when I was still active and I was going to court on a daily basis, and I would express to them my family's disappointment in the fact that I'm not an attorney practicing law on a day-to-day basis like them. Like, one of them was like, yo, El, you crazy, man. He goes, I wish I could be in your shoes. He goes, this profession is not all that it's hyped up to be. And the financial gains that people think go along with the profession are not the least bit accurate in terms of expectations.
Yeah.
So, but I still had the desire to want to do it, but I was lazy, man. Like, I got comfortable. I got complacent, 5 years on the job became 10. And then I'm like, oh, only 10 more to go before I'm eligible for my pension. And,
go back to narcotics.
Oh.
You said after 3 years, you went into narcotics.
3.5 years. Yeah.
3.5 years.
I could have been sooner because, again, I was going to be an undercover. So the application process started for me wanting to be an undercover.
Yeah.
And it never happened. But when I look back, it's one of those things I wish I would have did, because I think I would have excelled at it, given my background, given how I grew up.
Yeah.
It would have served me well in that capacity.
I thought for sure you were UC.
Yeah, a lot of people thought. I mean, I was able, because I was able to kind of like blend in certain areas. I was able to help out the undercovers in certain operations that we would do.
Right.
And I would take a lot of pride in that these guys wouldn't trust, these guys and girls wouldn't trust me in playing that role with them, despite the fact that that wasn't my day-to-day role, within narcotics.
Okay.
But that was one of the points in my career where I had a blast. I mean, it was very draining.
Is that where you met?
Physically and mentally draining.
Is that where you met Adriano Contreras?
Oh, no. Contreras I met in the 4-6. We were rookie cops together.
Rookie cops together.
Yeah, that's my guy.
Shout out to Contreras.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's like, he's one of my best friends. One of my confidants. Like, that's like family, It's funny, I went to his retirement party.
I saw her
last week, and in his card, I said, I'm going to try to remember what it was. I said more or less that cultivating my relationship with you was one of my greatest gifts in being in the NYPD.
Wow.
He's one of those dudes that I hold very dear to my heart. The level of respect, the love, it's just, it's constantly reciprocated. And the thing about it is, I value those relationships so much because I became very jaded by the job. And I openly tell people that I only like maybe like 20, 25% of the people that I worked with throughout my career. I don't like them. I'm not sure. I mean, I venture to say that a lot of people I don't like, and I'm sure there was times in which the feeling was mutual. I'm sure they're good at home with their respective families, with their children. But I didn't like working with them. I didn't like them as cops.
My question to you on that, do you feel that these different units, or the more elite units that you went into, and we'll talk about those units eventually, do you feel like your distaste or that feeling that you have right now, do you feel like that occurred in the more elite units that you went to?
No,
No,
it started like from jump.
from the jump.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
like I said, I'm not a tough guy, right?
Yeah.
But
And
it was very evident that there were guys that would put on a uniform and they would feel like the uniform would make them tough. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
like one of my friends recently posted on their Instagram page and they said, like, you know, like you can say whatever you want, misrepresenting who you are on social media, but like I know who you are. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I could see right through people. Like that's one of my gifts. Like I'm all about energy, right? So you and I were able to immediately cultivate like a friendship based upon the energy that we exuded when you and I met.
Right.
Right. So your energy that you exude speaks for you before your mouth even opens up.
Sure.
So I get a good read on people just based upon the energy they're exuding and how I'm reading it. And I just didn't like the vastment. Like I would tell you, man, like 75%, maybe even 80%, man. Like
It's funny that you say that because when you first started talking about going to the 4-6, you said that it was a tight knit community.
Yeah, I'm saying the precinct, yeah, like in terms of like you're gonna always back the people you work with,
Of course.
setting your personal feelings aside.
Okay.
But if you remember, like I mentioned to you my upbringing and your word and your ability to zip it and not always feel compelled to speak and to like tell people everything about what you did, what you saw, who you were with, right? There was too much of that yip yap all the time. Like cops are some of the biggest, big mouths. And with that being said, if you run your mouth too much, now I can't trust you. You understand? If I can't trust you, I can't fuck with you. So I'll back you, but like we're never gonna be cool, ever, because you don't possess any of the characteristics, any of the traits that I hold very dear to my heart. I'm a very loyal dude.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying? So like, you have to know when to be able to shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And 80% of cops just incapable of doing that, you know? And I'll tell you this, man, the guys are worse than the girls.
Oh, yeah.
The males on the job are tenfold worse than the females, man. And I'll tell you another thing. I've worked with so many females that I'd rather be in the car with or in a volatile situation rather than a lot of the guys.
Why's that?
Because they know how to conduct themselves better and they were actually tougher and had more heart than a lot of the guys.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I see so many clowns out there that talk about women shouldn't be police officers.
What's the basis? I mean, listen, you're talking about
physicality.
That's
strictly a physicality.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's human nature. It's science. You know, men are physically stronger than women, right? So that being said, you would be at a greater advantage in a physical altercation being involved with a female officer being on your side versus, male officer instead of female.
Yeah.
But not all men are ready to engage in those kind of situations either. So
it's true. It's true.
I mean, you know, I was very selective of who it was I would work with, wherever it was that I worked. Right. You know, I worked with a guy one day. He said some racist shit. We were out in the field in narcotics. Never worked with him again after that. He was on my team. And he said I was like, what? He was like, look at these. I was like, excuse me? I was like,
flowed right off of his tongue.
Yeah, like it was so like natural, like as if he was like just making like some kind of reference to the weather. And I was like, oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not. No.
Hard pass.
Yeah, the sergeant's going to know that, you know, I'd rather be alone than with someone like you. So,
good.
You know, I was very just like, you had to be on point tactically and you had to be a good human being. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That counts for a lot.
It does, especially when you're spending hours with a person.
Yeah. You could be a great cop. I'm sure you work with a lot of great cops, but they were shitty human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like.
But the crazy part is they thought that because they were great cops, that made them great human beings.
Right.
That's the sad part.
Yeah. Well, a wise man once told me the worst lies are the ones you tell yourself. So a lot of those guys fell into that category.
For sure. So you did narcotics. How long did you do narcotics for?
I was there for 4 years.
As an investigator?
As an investigator.
Okay.
But I was active from like jump. Like my first confidential informant coincidentally had the same birthday as me. And we locked him up. I mean, we locked him up on the dope set in Edenwald Projects in the 4-7 precinct. I don't know if you're familiar with Edenwald Projects.
I'm not really familiar.
It's a big housing project in the North Bronx. One of the worst in the city, hands down. One of the biggest, one of the worst, one of the most violent. You know, yeah, a lot of gang activity, just a lot of overall violence. Okay. And it carries over from one generation to the next, right? So it's just like cyclical. So yeah, we locked this dude up. He'd been living there his whole life, an older dude. And man, I went on a tear with this guy, bro. Guns, drugs, search warrants. And it got to a point where like we became close. Like, you know, I mean, you know, I kept it professional, of course, but like, you know, you're giving them money, they're doing controlled buys, you're giving them money for the results of like, you know, search warrants and things like that. And, you know, so it's beneficial to them to foster that relationship as well. But like, bro, it got so crazy that his mom would call me on my birthday to wish me a happy birthday. Like, what? Mom would invite me over for dinner. His mom, like, it was nuts.
Wow.
But I was really good at cultivating those relationships. So I had a lot of really good informants. And, you know, when we reference my background, you know, that played a huge part in me being able to cultivate those relationships and developing that trust and understanding, you know, with these people where they were able to see beyond the badge.
How did it feel being on the other side from seeing your father getting taken down as a result of narcotics to now you assist him with taking it down?
So it's an interesting question you're asking because I have a big heart, man. You know, I'm a very compassionate dude. And so there were times in which I'd arrest dudes and I'd feel bad because I know that they're good people. Like, that's the thing. When you work with like robotic type of cops, they're like fucking permanent perp, fuck him, you know, this, whatever.
No discretion.
Yeah, like no, not even about so much discretion, but like not being able to see beyond this person's criminal activities, right? Like there's a human being there as well. Like you do realize.
Back to what we were talking about, yeah.
Right. So there were times in which, like, you know, I would genuinely feel bad. Here's a crazy story, actually. You reminded me of this story. So I get a search warrant for an apartment on, I think it was like 222nd Street, not too far from Edenwald Projects. It was an apartment being rented within a private house. So we had bought crack, cocaine, everything in there. Like the CI, the informant, had seen like a firearm in the location. So we hit the door, boom, go in, execute the search warrant, secure the premises. There was like 2 occupants inside the apartment, and I'm hunched over, like, you know, like on one of the perps that was on the floor, and now it was kind of dark at first, and then, like, you know, we turned the lights on, and he looked up at me. He was like, "Oh," and I was like, I looked down and I was like, "Yo, is this dude that I used to play ball with in high school?"
Wow.
And I was like, and now you know how cops are. They're like looking at me like,
crazy, like,
because no, we got a loaded firearm out of there. We got a shit ton of crack cocaine. We got a shit ton of heroin. And this dude called me by my nickname because people that know me, they call me L. They call me L or E. He called me L. And I was like, oh shit. He's looking at me like, you know, he's on the floor like this and I'm standing over him. And I was like, ah. And when I sighed the way that I did, man, as I closed my eyes, if this just happened yesterday, I was not looking forward to the backlash that was going to follow from the people I work with, who were going to then tell other people that we work with in the building, who would tell other people, like, basically painting me out to be like a perp myself, right? Because, like, what are the chances? How is it this guy knew who I was? You know what I'm saying? And little did they know, this is someone I hadn't seen in years, right? So in that situation, because I had a prior relationship with this person from playing ball, I was like, I felt so bad because he had so much weight and he had a loaded firearm. Like, I know he was going to have to do some kind of time. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So that was like a wild type situation where, like, you know, I happen to know the person. But
Did you get any backlash?
I did, man.
You did.
I did because, and it didn't come from the city guys. It was the ignorant dudes that, and you know, that came from the out of counties. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, just couldn't wait to, like, you know, mislabel someone in this case. But remind me of a crazy story, man. So this is funny, dude. This guy actually, rest in peace, he passed away. So when I was working at the Harley Davidson Cafe, I started there as a busboy, and I eventually became a bar back, and I did some bartending as well there. So there was a lot of a lot of people from like the entertainment industry, like striving, like trying to, like, you know, break through the field, that were working as waiters and waitresses, bartenders there, right? So they'd work long hours. So there was one of the guys from the security team, he was selling coke. So like it was multiple guys. Like I had one of my boys was like, you know, one of my friends that I got the job there. He started selling coke to fucking people that worked there. And so like him and this other guy that was security, they were like the known fucking coke dealers, supplying the entire restaurant. It was a big restaurant, a big staff, like managers. They were all fucking, you know, buying coke off these guys. So years later, I'm a rookie. I'm brand new. I'm in the 4-6 precinct. Okay, so it was I'm maybe there for like less than a year. It's the San Gennaro Festival in downtown Manhattan. So we get signed on the detail, and we get to the detail, and we're lining up on like Mulberry and Canal, right? I'm standing there, and I'm looking. I see this dude in uniform. I'm like, yo. I'm like, is that? I'm like, no way, man. Yo, and it's the guy that used to work security at the Harley Davidson Cafe. And I was like, oh shit. And he and I were like tight. We got a great rapport, great relationship, right? And like we see each other and we kind of just like smiled. like a mischievous kid, like that little evil like smile. And we smile, we like raise the eyebrows, you know, because I think like the lieutenant, the captain was like giving that little spiel before, you know, they deployed us out to the detail, to our post, excuse me. So after he's done with his spiel, I walk over to him. I was like, yo, I guess they kind of let anybody come on this job, don't they? You know what I mean? And he smiled and he was like this, you know, he did this. And I was like, of course. I was like, no, you're gonna tell me that shit, bro. Like, of course, man. And this dude was a great guy, great fucking guy. I won't mention his name, I won't tarnish his name or anything like that. But he recently passed away. He took his own life. And he retired, full career.
He took his life.
Yeah, so it was, you know, you mentioned being a very spiritual person, Lenny.
100%.
I'm not a religious person.
There's a difference. It's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Huge difference.
Huge difference.
I'm not religious.
Okay.
I'm not religious.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not religious.
Okay.
I'm spiritual.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. Then I misinterpreted what you had said to me earlier or during previous conversation. So we'll circle back to that. But I'm a super spiritual person, right?
Absolutely.
So sometimes, and I have these weird energies and these intuitions that, you know, are just constantly within me. Mm-hmm. So less than a year ago or so, I remember this guy. He came to my mind. And I knew he had a little more time on the job than I had. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I was still on the job. It was close to when I was getting ready to leave the job. And so I plug his name into, you know, the database, you know, look at the personnel file, and I see that he retired. I'm like, oh. So I'm like, all right, good for him, you know. And we had lost contact. We had kept in contact. We exchanged numbers and we kept in contact for a while after we had bumped into each other at that detail.
Okay.
So I'm like, oh shit, I'm okay. So I hope he's doing well, you know. I think he had been retired maybe for like a year at that point. And I'm on Instagram and I'm like just perusing through my feed and his picture comes up on like one of those, you know,
down pages,
something like that. Yeah. And I was like, and this dude, let me say, super handsome guy, always like super fit, great sense of humor, you know what I mean? And yeah, and he unfortunately, he tragically took his own life, man, like shortly after he retired. And it broke me, Lenny. That shit broke me because I was like, he came to my mind like so like just naturally, you know? And then I started, like I'm getting the chills now. Like I started thinking like, man, I wish I would have like kept in contact. You know, I wish I could have played some kind of role in, you know, preventing him from making that decision that he made. You know what I'm saying? And like it brought me back to like early in my career because like I think everyone in this profession struggles with mental health at times.
100%.
So like, you know, I'm getting all fucking emotional now, teary-eyed.
No, it's all right.
But like, I remember early on in my career, I struggled tremendous financially. Like when like I was still with my ex-wife, my daughters were really young and it was hard. And there was times in which like I remember those demonic thoughts actually coming to my mind. And I'm like, get the fuck out of my head. Like, why are you coming in my head? Like, why are you even like putting these?
How is it there?
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
Where did it come from? So I don't know, but I battled with that, with those thoughts. And just the mere fact that the thoughts were circulating in my mind was so frightening to me. I mean, obviously I'm here. God bless, man. Like I never acted on that.
Thank God.
But I could understand like why it was circulating through my mind, you know? And it was so bad at one point, man. Like it was so hard financially for me. I remember I still had ties to people that were involved in criminal shit, man. And I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like there were moments in which like the opportunity is always there. Like I'm keeping it above. I have friends that were still selling drugs, like,
of course.
And they told me like, yo, L, if you ever like, yo, you know, you family, like if you ever get hard up for cash and you want to like, you want a little come up, like I got you, you know, like they were going to use my profession, my shield, you know, as a
leverage.
way, not leverage per se, but, you know, help them get shit from point A to point B. You know what I'm saying? And right around the time where I was having those thoughts, I don't even like to even use that word. I was
sure.
Yeah, I was having these fucking suicidal thoughts, man. Like
people sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You. Word it however you need to word it. Because there's somebody that needs to hear your wording, whose life you're gonna save.
And that's how I felt about my friend that I had lost contact with. But when I was having these thoughts, man, I was so overwhelmed, man. Like I had gained weight. Like I was so just like everything was getting to me. That was like I was in narcotics at that time. Like it was just I was tired. And no matter how much overtime I was working, like it was never enough. Cause she was home raising the girls and I was never home. Never home. And so there were times in which I was so close to like shooting like my friend a text message like, yo, fuck, let's do this one time. Cause like one time could have been like a little 25K, 50K come up. And that would have been like what I needed in order to like get myself even. How about that? You know what I'm saying? And I never did it. I was too afraid. You know, when I look back now in my career, you know, I tell people all the time, like, you know, I never went to prison, but I was institutionalized for a very long time where, you know, by virtue of being a cop, my real identity was stripped of me, you know, and I had to play within certain rules and guidelines and treat people a certain way that maybe I didn't want to treat, whether it was like on duty or off duty.
That's heavy.
You know what I'm saying? So like I I didn't want to violate that ultimate code of, God forbid, ever, becoming vulnerable to where I'm now a corrupt cop.
Wow. Wow. I would have to say this, man. What you just mentioned about you being in narcotics or being in a heavy unit and having to kind of compromise your being or your identity and do things that you normally wouldn't do if you weren't a police officer. Nothing illegal, but I think that's why for me, and I'm not trying to make this about me, but that's why for me, I didn't mind being a youth officer. I didn't mind being in the neighborhood coordination officer program, well, as a youth coordination officer, because I realized that being an active cop was not who I was. And I knew that in order for me to be an active cop, it would have to strip away a big portion of my natural being.
It wasn't who you are.
No.
But the reference I made had nothing to do with what I was doing as far as at that point in my career. When I say to you that I felt institutionalized, I felt like there was so many limitations with how I had to conduct myself. And I don't even mean with like necessarily like the community. I mean with other cops, right? I had to really, really be very careful, more so of my behaviors outside of the job, where I had to swallow my pride at times, where I wanted to maybe get involved in a physical altercation with someone.
Gotcha.
Things happen. I managed to get myself out of certain situations where I could have been jammed up for a while. But there's a reason why they make the job 20 years and out. Like there's so much physical and psychological stress that you have to endure throughout the course of your career. It's only fair that they give the option to leave after 20 years. And here's the thing, like the pension that we're getting came with a substantial cost in terms of what we sacrificed for all those years. And everything has an equation, right? Everything has analytics that go along with it. So we're not expected to live that long, the majority, I'm not going to would, excuse me, beyond our retirement, like, because of what we endured while we were working. A lot happens within our bodies that we're not aware of, right? And I actually had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who's a nurse. We met in the 46th precinct. She was completing nursing school while she was still a cop. And she went on and worked in medical for probably 16 of her 20 years in the department. And we were getting close to that 20-year mark. And she called me. She's like, "Hey, Ellie," she goes, "Hey, how you doing? How you been? Blah, blah, blah." She goes, "Are you staying?" And at that point, I really hadn't rendered a decision that I was definitely leaving at 20 years.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm really not sure." I said, "What about you?" She's like, "Oh, I'm out." She's like, "I'm done." And then that spiraled into a conversation where this girl is like one of these real, real smart girls. She did her own study where she was analyzing the amount of years you spend in the department and how many years you're living post-retirement.
It's like a ratio.
So she said to me, she goes that the people that leave at 20 live substantially longer than those that stay longer. And her cutoff point, her in terms of years serving the department, working the department, I want to say it was around 22. She's like, after 22 years, like your expected lifespan is significantly less than it is if you leave before the completion of your 22nd year.
Wow.
And that really hit home with me. And I said to her, but I feel good, like knock on wood, I'm in a good state of health, like I'm okay. She said, Ellie, she goes, I'm sure you are, but make no mistake about it. This job did a lot to you internally that you can't even begin to imagine. You can't see it. There's not a way to diagnose it. You know, even the amount of hours you spend commuting to and from work has had such a significant impact on your overall being.
Oh my goodness, man.
And after we ended that conversation, and before things started happening within the department, overtime scandals and what have you, I kind of already made a decision that like, yo, like you're leaving, like the absolute longest you're staying on the job is 22 years and then you're done.
The reason why I have such a reaction to what it is that you just said is because, and this isn't me complaining, but that commute is draining, bro.
Oh my God, dude.
It's
even when you get used to it, like it got to a point at that time. So I retired at the first steps off. I was working at headquarters. I'm living in, out in Suffolk, right? And the drive became routine. And I thought it was routine. And there was times in which, as you already know, like it was
autopilot.
Exactly.
Autopilot.
Exactly. Where like you became so accustomed to the routine of it, you were no longer able to appreciate the stress that went along with it. And that supports what my friend was saying. That supports her theory that you don't even realize it, right? So we become numb to a lot of shit, right? And that's where we get hurt most in the long term.
I've been hearing a lot about police officers that are retired committing suicide.
Very common. And I'm looking at your shirt and your slogan, right? Purpose over pension, right? So forget about the pension aspect of it, right? Because all cops that, do at least all cops are entitled to some kind of pension, right? Regardless as to when they leave the job. But people don't have a fucking purpose, right? And I remember, like, you remember this as well, working with so many people, you look at them, you're like, this guy has no identity beyond the job, like beyond the badge. Like you have no identity. Like this is all you know. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And unfortunately, I genuinely feel bad for those people, right? Because life is so much greater than job.
So much greater.
People ask me now, like, what's retirement like? And I say to them, I love not being a cop. I love it. I will forever love and respect those that serve the profession. But I cannot begin to tell you how great it feels to be detached from it. And I didn't realize that I would feel this way until I left. But it is such a relief to no longer have to endure all of those internal stresses that we suppressed for so many years. Here, what we were forced to see at times, what we were forced to hear.
And then in the unseen realm.
Yeah.
Spiritual.
Yes.
Which to me, mental health and wellness it's a big topic in law enforcement. Physical health as well. But for me, I don't see anybody talking about spiritual wellness within law enforcement. It's not something that's talked about often. And that's one of you asked me before we started interviewing earlier, you said, where do I see this going? And that's one of the elements that I'm working on for others that are in law enforcement.
The spirituality aspect of it.
Yes. All I know is Jesus Christ. All I know is God. So that's the avenue that I'll be taking. But I think that people need to find some type of spiritual grounding, what it is that relates to them. Me, that's my truth. I don't judge anybody for what it is that they believe in.
Right.
But I think that comes before anything else. It's really essential. And then everything else begins to follow. And that's from my personal experience and plenty of other people that I know that are not in law enforcement. But we'll save that for another day.
You know what's interesting, Lenny, is that I feel like the value that society sees in you as a retired member of law enforcement is the value that you wish you had from the job itself while you were still serving the profession.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the job, it provided me security.
Right.
It introduced me to some wonderful people like yourself.
Appreciate that. Feelings mutual.
And that's why I still push, because there's people that are not able to speak to me the way that you're speaking to me, that are not able to speak to somebody else the way that you're speaking to me, because they don't know how to. They don't know where to begin. They have traumas that started before the job
Oh, hell yeah.
that compounded
With
on
the
the
job.
traumas with the
Absolutely.
job.
Yeah.
And they think because they're not on the job anymore, and because they have a nice pension, and because they can travel, and because they can chill whenever they want, that they're good.
Yeah, no, you're not, man. I was going to a therapist for a while. Probably like at the, I want to say 12-year mark or so of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And we unpacked a lot. I mean, a lot. And the thing about traumas is that, other than the fact that we all have them, is that when we're experiencing them, sometimes the circumstances by virtue in which we're experiencing them seem normal to us because that's all that you know.
Especially as men.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 You forget about it, man. Yeah. We're expected to endure anything and everything under the sun, suck it up, spit it out, and keep moving. You know what I
Right.
mean? But we would talk, and I would reflect, and I'm like, yeah, but that just seems so, like, I wasn't bothered by it. It just seemed it just seemed normal. And then she looked at me one day and she said, Ellie, there is absolutely nothing normal about what you experienced. And I can't really divulge too much about it because it's very personal. But
Yeah. No problem.
I was like, but you know, it was okay. She's like, no. She goes, and that's the problem, is that we suppress these things and they become embedded in who we are as people.
Mm.
And we don't realize that by suppressing them, we're just allowing it to become a part of who we are forever because we never properly dealt with it.
Correct. Correct.
So, and that's why you have a lot of cops taking their own lives. You have them doing it while they're active, while they're retired. Because sometimes, and listen, I've suppressed so much, I've learned how to just battle through it. And I guess maybe I'm looking at it as if it's just too late in the game in terms of my life to unpack it again and try to deal with it. But I think that as much as the profession represents itself as being a proponent of supporting mental health and all that goes along with it, there's still a certain stigma that goes along with it as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, you know, when you've made that horrific decision to tragically take your own life, that's when they say that, you know, we have all these outlets, all of these resources there to support it, you know, to help you battle through that crisis. But if you want to battle through while you're still alive, there's going to be some, you know, consequences to it as well.
Right.
Right. So, you know, I don't, listen, I look back now, man, on the job. And to your point, I'm blessed to, you know, be receiving a pension every month. I'm blessed to be alive. I'm blessed to have health benefits for the remainder of my life. The investments, everything. But I didn't like the terms in which I left because the department was not and is not in a good place.
Mm.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because that is a huge, huge factor in terms of the impact it has on the overall mental health of its cops.
Wow. So if you don't mind, can you just talk about what other units you were in during your tenure as a police officer in the New York City Police Department leading up to the statement that you just said?
All right. So after narcotics, there was an opportunity to work as a liaison at the Office of Special Narcotics Prosecutor, which is out of the Manhattan DA's office. So I went there for 2 years, and it was a great experience. Like, I managed the entire search warrant and confidential informant database for all of OCCB, all of organized crime. I drafted search warrants. I dealt with all of the audio and video evidence that was given to us by undercovers, by investigators that were working long-term investigations. Did that. That was cool. Met some nice people, met some nice ADAs, some of whom I still have relationships with till this day. After that, God, man, I moved around so fucking much. I went to asset forfeiture after that, and I worked money laundering cases.
Wow.
I was there for 5 years. I was also part of the Homeland Security Task Force for 3 of those 5 years. And that was a great experience because I never knew how significant money laundering schemes are to any and all criminal enterprises throughout the world.
Wow.
So I learned how to dissect, the money laundering aspects of the financial backgrounds to a lot of these enterprises. And I'm not a math guy. Surveillances, search warrants on safe deposit boxes, seizing people's bank accounts. Super interesting stuff.
Wow.
Definitely something I wanted to have continue with post-retirement. There's a lot of opportunities with that. But I'm just not interested in dealing with numbers on a day-to-day basis. Had a little bit of personal hiccup at the tail end of my time in asset forfeiture. Wound up in auto crime. I was there for about 3 years.
How was that?
I didn't like it. I'm not
Really?
I'm not a car guy. Great unit,
Yeah.
super cool unit. Met some decent people. I always chuckled at the detectives that worked in auto crime because they thought they were real detectives, and I'm like, you guys are handling property crimes, so I don't know what you're so proud about. But there were some guys that also worked some heavy cases because a lot of the auto related crime cases they were working had a nexus to narcotics as well as firearms. So there was some cases that were worked that were a little bit heavy and involved real perps and real criminals and crimes and what have you. But I didn't like it. The people there were kind of like, meh,
Really?
bosses were like, meh, whatever. But a nice, cool unit. I could see why people have a desire to want to go work there.
Right.
Left there. I went to gun violence in the Bronx. I was there for about 2 years or so. That was a cool unit. The unit that I worked in was basically we investigated gun recidivists. We monitored them while they were, free, and try to cultivate cases on them, while they were out there doing what they do in their day to day. So it was cool. Met some cool people, real cool people. But at that point in my career, I realized that I was the old timer, the old guy, because people started viewing me as the old timer, and I'm not a grumpy guy, but I didn't like the new generation of cops that were coming into the department.
Okay.
And the level of entitlement that they had.
Right.
Because, I came from a culture on the job where you have to wait your turn to have certain luxuries and amenities and privileges with the job. And these guys thought because they're running around, every day trying to lock up bad guys doing what they were doing, that they were entitled to those same benefits that I earned by virtue of the amount of years I have on the job. So I wasn't really feeling that aspect of the culture. And then I had an opportunity to go and work for Police Commissioner Sewell in her liaison unit.
Wow.
So I left. So rewind for a second. I was very active. They had submitted me for a promotion to get second grade earlier on in my career. I didn't know the right people to push for me. So it was kind of just filling out paperwork, submitting it, and then it would probably wind up going missing on some chief's desk at 1PP at headquarters. So one of my friends wound up working very closely with Commissioner Sewell. He gave me an opportunity to go work in her liaison unit, and he ultimately made a push for me to finally get promoted. So I got promoted before I actually got transferred to that unit. I got transferred I got promoted while I was in gun violence, which was a blessing.
Congrats.
Better late than never, of course. Thank you.
Congrats.
So it did help, boost the pension a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I went to work for her liaison unit, and I wish I'd have been there longer. So that's where we met. I think we met when I was in the liaison unit.
When you were coming to the 2-3?
Yes.
Oh.
So I was going to visit Contreras. He was there still, right? And I was also, so what the liaison unit was doing under her administration was we were dealing with the elected officials on her behalf and addressing certain community issues that had risen all the way up to the police commissioner's office to make sure that they got addressed accordingly. So that's what I was doing.
Okay.
Working for her. And when I look back on my career, and I'm not saying it because she was the one that ultimately promoted me, she was the best police commissioner that the NYPD ever had that never was, unfortunately, because she wasn't given a fair shot to have the autonomy that she deserved to have while she was a PC.
Gotcha.
She's one of those people who had a genuine connection to the profession. She was able to relate to you on a personal level, even only have met you moments ago. And she had empathy. She had a high level of intelligence, and she had a very commanding presence about her. She probably could have been the longest tenured police commissioner to have ever served the police department, because I feel as though had she been given the shot to do her job accordingly, she would have been able to outlive any and all future mayoral administrations because she was that talented in her abilities.
Why do you think that she wasn't given the chance?
Because we had a mayor that ruined the entire department. I'm sure he had good intentions. I'm sure Adams had great intentions when he became mayor, but I'll put it to you this way. We were chopping up about business ventures before we sat down and we started doing this podcast.
Sure.
So if I have, and listen, I'm all about taking care of my people, and when I made my way to the police commissioner's office, any way in which I was able to help out my people, I did so. And I'm the kind of guy, like, if you're my people, like, you don't have to ask me for shit. I will make sure that I go out of my way to make your career better in any which way possible I can, right?
Right.
So when this guy became mayor, for him, it was all about taking care of his people, which I understand and respect. But now you're at a level where you have to make sure that the people you're putting in certain positions, right, are qualified to be in those positions, that have experience to serve you with integrity in those respective positions.
That makes sense.
So when you talk about what he did to the hierarchy of the department, he essentially allowed a first grade detective to have more powers than the police commissioner. So where now the police commissioner is having to answer to a first grade detective. You don't grant those powers. You don't delegate your powers, to someone that is A, not qualified, but B, certainly doesn't deserve to have those powers.
Right.
In any way whatsoever. Forget about the fact that he's having open conversations with, members of the service, members of the department at the upper echelon, that he would be breaking every chain of command there is possible to reach that point of communication. But it's just, listen, everything that's happening right now is a direct result of poor judgment, selfishness, narcissism. You can claim to have the best interests of the city, the best interests of the department, but when you're constantly making decisions that contradict that which you're representing, you're failing.
That's deep. Wow.
So like when I left, it was just like a bitter taste in my mouth because, there was a scandal that happened with overtime, and now the overtime was heavily scrutinized. And
was that with the female lieutenant?
Yes.
Okay. We won't get into
that. Yes. So when that,
unless you want to, but
no, I'm not gonna. I know her personally, so I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah. And I know her too.
Right. So I'm not gonna go there. But I will say that what she did was the epitome of selfishness, because she changed the trajectory of so many people's careers. You know what I mean? And she led to people having to leave the job a lot sooner than they had wanted to leave because of the drastic changes that were made to the overtime overall standards of overtime. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But for me, it was the overtime factor. But I think for me, honestly, Lenny, and I tell people this, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was this. You come to work every day having to speak to people and deal with people and treat them with dignity, kindness, and respect, regardless whether or not they deserve that from you. That being said, you have to essentially wear a mask every fucking day because you are forced to be nice to people that are not deserving of your kindness. So 47 years old, I had it. I'm like, fuck you. I'm done. Like, I'm not coming to work being nice to people that don't deserve it. Plain and simple. So it was the overtime factor, and it was like I was just fed up with the people. That was it for me.
If you had to stay, if you were at 18 years and dealing with what you were dealing with toward the end of your career, you weren't able to leave, what would you have done?
I would have ate it.
What would that have done for your mental state?
I'd have been miserable. But I was working the First Steps office.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was working there. I was able to help people. I was working in discipline. So I was essentially triaging all of the disciplinary cases that were circulating throughout the entire department.
Disciplining.
So internally, yeah. So I would deal with the advocate and the CCRB cases and everything. I would triage all those cases. So, like when I would get cases, listen, I've worked in so many different places. Like I knew a lot of the people that were in those folders. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I would help those people. I would put in a word for those people, right? When they were, having to get transferred, I would make sure that I would help them go to a place that was desirable where they could still make money and be okay. So for me, I'm all about paying it forward. It's always been like that for me because people have helped me throughout the course of my career. So any opportunity I ever had to pay it forward, I did so, right? That's why, I don't like asking people for favors because I feel like, I'm speaking with respect to the job or in any aspect of life for that matter. If we have a good rapport, like if we're like this and I am ever in a position that could be beneficial to you, I'm going to text you or pick up the phone and say, hey, Lenny, I got A, B, C, D going on. I think you might be interested in this. How does it sound? You know what I'm saying? I expect you to reciprocate that. Not me having to reach out to you, having learned that you may have something that could benefit me as your friend through a third party, and now I'm having to call you and solicit you to help me. No, I don't do that. So the one thing that I've always appreciated, even at that level, like working in discipline, was like opening a folder and being like, oh, and then I would talk to people and I would dissect the facts and the allegations and what this person was being charged with. And knowing who the person really is as a human being, like easy. Let's soften the blow. Oh, let's transfer him here while he's awaiting, the disposition of his case or her case. Okay. So that was the luxury that I had, was being able to help other people.
Within your tenure in the New York City Police Department, at what point did you feel that you being a police officer, and maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but at what point did you feel like it was aligned with your purpose?
So for me, I can't recall situations where I was able to feel a sense of fulfillment in maybe helping a member of the public, even throughout all the times in which I did, right? Not realizing the impact that I had on someone's life and helping them through whatever it was they were going through. For me, it's always been helping a fellow officer get up from the ground and keep going, right? I've had close friends of mine that were on the verge of being on the verge of being terminated, and having them crying on my shoulder and helping them push through that process and ultimately surviving it or going back to what I said, knowing, and you know this, sometimes you just have to make a move in your career for your overall sanity to rejuvenate the job for yourself. So I've always been blessed to where I know people in certain places that can facilitate that for friends of mine to rejuvenate, to kind of like keep them moving, keep them going. Good. You know what I'm saying?
So good, bro.
So knowing, because I know I know what it feels like to be in a space on this job where the walls are caving in on you and you're like, I can't take this anymore. And you're stuck. Why? Because you don't know the right people to help you move. And that's what it was like for me early on. You know what I'm saying? So when I eventually found myself in places, meeting people on the job that can help my friends, help me, I would always do that for them because I knew that it would help them keep going. And, you know, since we made reference to mental health on so many times throughout the show, throughout the podcast, excuse me, that it would help their overall mental health by leaving those walls that were caving in on them and starting, like, you know, a new space on the job and feeling like life all over again.
I love that. I think that's one of the great things about the NYPD is that when you do begin to feel stuck, and if you do what you're supposed to do early in your career, that there are other options that can make it seem like you're doing a completely different job.
100%, but you have to know people. Like, there's a lot of people. Like, the difference is, and this goes back to what I was saying, like, there's people out there that are more qualified to serve in certain units than others, right? But they don't know the right network of people to help them get there. So what winds up happening is that you have those units being manned by people that aren't necessarily the most qualified. They just so happens they know the right network that ultimately got them there.
Right.
Right. And that's going back to what I said to you a moment ago about this mayoral administration, right? That's where the failure comes. You're putting people in positions where they're not suited to be. And that leads to failure.
That's so good. That's so good, man. Yeah. I know I've had a few friends that were like, hey, Lenny, you know, if you had stayed, I would have been able to get you here. I would have been able to get you there. But I was like, bro, I was done.
But where were you when I really needed that? That's what I would ask him. Like, why is it suddenly being extended to me, offered to me, you know, now that I have one foot out the door? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could, like, listen, I could have moved around, you know, without a doubt and not like left the job when I did.
Yeah.
But the wild shit is that even as being retired, I'm still helping people.
Yeah.
I'm still helping people.
Right.
And I love that.
That's, I've always said, I've said it on a few other podcasts that it's not the job that I loved. I love the people. And
I do too, but only 25%.
And the reason why I still would have said no, but thank you, I appreciate you, is because I wouldn't be able to talk openly how I am right now with you. If I was still on the job,
right,
I wouldn't have a podcast.
And I wouldn't be able to divulge all the shit that I divulged to you today, right, because it would be heavily scrutinized.
Right. And I wouldn't be able to help other people that aspire to be police officers and give them a heads up on what to look for, how to get their spiritual wellness intact, mental health, and so many other things.
Let me ask you a question out of curiosity. You're asking me other questions. Let me ask you a question.
Please do.
If someone you cared about deeply came to you and say, hey, Uncle Lenny, I'm considering joining the NYPD.
Yeah, I posted on this.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Oh,
no,
okay.
No,
so what would you say to that person?
So the post was, if my kids asked me or told me that they wanted to be police officers, what would I say? What I would do is I would give them my personal experience. On top of that, it's great that I can connect with a gentleman like yourself that has been in multiple units that can give them a little bit more of your experience. And I have other friends that worked in different units that could give their experience as well. I would then tell them to do their own digging and research, and based off of the people that I've placed in front of you that have given you their personal experience and how it's affected them in positive and negative ways, to determine if the job is for them. That's what I would do. I can't make a decision for them.
So I have a a relative of mine that's seriously considering going into the NYPD. And when he and I spoke about it, I said, go, get trained, get a little bit of experience, and use that as a means to go and leave to another department. That's what my advice would be to anyone that wanted to join the NYPD. And that comes from the heart. And that comes from my experience, not just, having been on the job, but my life experiences, which are so much more important than that which I experienced while I was on a job.
Yeah.
Because it's a business decision, right? We were talking business earlier. So you want to be savvy with any business decision you make. And that's my advice.
Yeah. And you want to
use them the way they're looking to use you.
Yeah. Take the emotion out of it.
Yep.
Have a game plan. A lot of the people that did respond or did comment when I posted that, they said the same thing as you.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or just shoot for another police department. Figure out where it is what it is that you need to do, dig deep and go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a time and place for it. Not in a city like New York.
Mm.
Not at all. And we're on the cusp of probably electing a very interesting mayor right now.
Yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So, it's not really
I feel bad.
Conducive to anything what the department stands for. So my heart and prayer goes out to, all of what potentially lies ahead if that decision is in fact made. So
yeah. Else, what does purpose over pension mean to you?
Purpose over pension mean to me? Everyone has a purpose, and oftentimes I should say, we don't know what our purpose necessarily is. We have to either search for it, but more times than not, it's going to find us before we find it. So when you say purpose over pension, I think that you have to, while you are a cop and you're so locked in on building your pension, you have to bear in mind that your purpose in life is not just that pension, that there's so much greater aspects to life than that, what you're striving for in terms of numbers. And that when you find what your purpose really is, more than likely it's going to supersede your obsession with your pension and the mathematics that go along with it. So that's my answer to your question.
I love it, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Anytime, man. Yeah.
This is a banger, for real.
Anytime. I appreciate that, Mark. For sure.
Thank you, brother.
For sure, man.